Appeals. Each side is allowed 10 minutes to present their case and 3 minutes for rebuttal. A 2-minute conclusion per side may be allowed if questions are asked by the council. The time limit for public comment on procedural motions to postpone an appeal shall be 1 minute for each person wishing to speak on the postponement.
Okay, before we start with the first appeal, I'm going to make my usual statement. I expect everyone to be professional, no name calling. I expect this to be handled on the appeal only. I'm asking the speakers, the audience, and the council to please cooperate, and let's hear what people have to say and do it in an orderly fashion. Please continue.
Item 1. H1 Associates, Jeff Valley appealing the Zoning Commission denial on June 2nd, 2026 to rezone 31.51 acres of land, more or less, located on the north side of Ronald Reagan Highway, west of Louisiana Highway 1077, Covington, S20T6S R10E from its existing R1 Rural Residential District to an S2 Suburban Residential District.
Okay. The first speaker is Mr. Paul Marone, that is in favor of the appeal. And I have 3 cards after you, so I don't know how you want to handle that.
Okay, thank you for letting me know that, Madam Chair. Yes, I'll yield some time at the end. Thank you. Good evening, members of the council. Paul Marone on behalf of Mr. Valley and H1 LLC, who is the proposed developer of this tract. As you just heard read into the record, we are requesting 31.51 acres be rezoned to S2. The actual tract is 38.7 acres. So there are buffers included in this tract which we are omitting from our zoning request so that those buffers can maintain their existing condition and there can be some assurance of that going forward. This is a relatively small project with a relatively small scope. We are proposing the S2 zoning, as your agenda suggests. That would yield approximately 91 lots. And if you look in your packet, I think you will see a conceptual plan that gives a general layout of what that layout might look like. I would submit to you that the S2 zoning is not only appropriate for this area, but is also compatible. Quoting from your staff report, our request of S2 is generally consistent with the other residential developments in the area. So we are consistent with that which is around us. And the staff report goes on to identify some of those, and I want you to hear those. Preston Vineyards, immediately across the street from this property. Goodbee Square, immediately to our east. Countryside, immediately to our east. Providence Park, to our east and across Highway 1077, and Eagle Landing to our north. All of these developments are in our direct vicinity, if not share a border with us. All are similar, if not more dense than the S2 that we are proposing. But not only are we compatible and consistent with what is around us, we are in keeping with your 2040 plan, the plan that this parish adopted to tell the public where and how this parish should develop into 2040. This entire tract is identified on your 2040 plan as residential medium density. Residential medium density allows densities up to 8 units an acre, far more dense than what we are proposing with our S2. So not only are we consistent with what is around us, but we are consistent with your future vision of what St. Tammany should look like. With regards to drainage, we know this is a zoning case, but we know also that that is a sensitive issue in this area. What I can tell you is that we are fully prepared and have already started looking at the drainage in this area. First, we are not in the Chafuncta Basin. We are in the Tangipahoa River Basin. And we will not only meet, but we will exceed your drainage regulations. That pertains not only to retention, but also to fill mitigation if it's required on this site as we go through the planning process. Your UDC requires only a 50-foot buffer along the highway. we are proposing to have that 50-foot buffer. On our west side, we will have a 100-foot buffer. Again, these buffers are not being rezoned, they're being left in their natural state. We will also have 50-foot buffers along our north and our east lines, again, which your UDC does not require. Finally, you have heard many times, and from me and others, the need for lots, residential lots for our local builders. Our custom builders who are having a very hard time finding lots to build on to perpetuate their business and to keep their crews together. Ms. Casabon had asked us early on if we would identify lots for that group of builders, and these lots, if approved, are for that group of builders. I'm going to yield my additional time because some of those builders are here tonight and they would like to address you directly to talk about the need that they see and the need for these lots. So I'll conclude by simply saying that our site and the proposed development meets the goals of what S2 zoning is under your UDC. Your staff noted, and I will echo their statement from the staff report, we are generally consistent with those developments that are around us, and we are consistent with your 2040 plan. This is a relatively small project with relatively small impacts, but it means a lot to this parish. It means a lot to the builders in this parish. It means a lot to those that are trying to locate to this parish. Your housing study told you, I believe, what we have been saying for some time. We need residential development in this parish, and we believe this is an appropriate location, and we urge you to support our request. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Casey Forshak.
Good evening. My name is Casey Forshag. I'm a residential builder here in St. Tammany Parish. And I'm here to speak in support of this subdivision because it's the exact type of subdivision we need. My company builds custom homes, and today I have just one home under construction with no meaningful backlog. The biggest reason is the lack of demand, but it's the lack of places to build. This proposed community fills the important gap in our market. These homes provide opportunities for our working families and young professionals. It's attainable for many families who can't afford today's million-dollar neighborhoods but still want to invest in our community. I'd also like to share what it means for our local economy. Last year alone, my company paid approximately $3.6 million to local subcontractors and $2.8 million to local suppliers. That's over $6 million right here in the St. Tammany Parish from my small company. This year, because there simply isn't enough new opportunities to build, those numbers aren't even a quarter of what they were last year. If that's happening to me, I know it's happening to many others around here. Many of my local tradesmen and suppliers also feeling the same slowdown. Approving responsible subdivisions like this one doesn't just create new jobs, it creates jobs that keep local businesses working, creates tax revenue, and allows families to continue living and investing here in St. Tammany Parish. I respectfully ask you to support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Cecil Hudson.
Good evening. Y'all know me as Cecil Hudson, Hudson Solutions Group, and I stand in support of this project. Jeff Valley is an exceptional developer, and most of you know him and know his projects, and I promise you he will exceed the requirements that are here in St. Tammany Parish. I, as a low volume small home builder, this is the type of development that we have been asking for, and our clients are demanding it. And just a little excerpt from the New Orleans Metropolitan Housing Association Realtors shows that St. Tammany Parish now has fewer homes and condominiums available for sale than the number sold over the previous 3 years. That imbalance is a clear indicator that our absorption rate is outpacing our supply. In other words, demand is rising while inventory continues to shrink. We need subdivisions, we need lots that are build ready. And subdivisions like this and many others that you consider don't just happen overnight. As you know, it takes 3 to 5 years to get lots that are build ready and that are ready for us builders to drive a stake and shovel in the ground. And so please consider this project and others from a 30,000-foot perspective. And for builders like me, that we are looking to the future and how we're going to be able to meet the demands of our prospective clients, and that we have to be able to offer them affordable housing, which is no longer, the word affordable does not even apply. It's more obtainable. And so we need to move forward with projects like this, and I simply urge you to consider the broad parish-wide benefits of these developments. And rather than focusing on complaints of a few, your approval tonight will demonstrate your commitment to thoughtful, forward-looking planning and to ensure that St. Tammany Parish remains a place where families can find attainable, well-designed homes. And for builders like me, that's what we offer. We appreciate your support of this project tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthew George.
Good evening, council members. My name is Matthew George. I'm the Government Affairs Liaison with the Northshore Home Builders Association. According to the parish's own housing study, our parish needs 11,000 to 17,000 new homes by the year 2030. Right now, 45% of our workers commute to this parish to work here from other parishes. Teachers, firefighters, police officers, nurses, and other young professionals simply cannot find homes that they can afford. Our median household income is around $300,000 right now. It's close to a 20% increase since 2020. This isn't just about numbers. We are losing the people that we rely on every day. Healthcare employees struggle to retain workers, and from the people
Sir,
that commute.
You want to hold that?
Yeah,
we have
I'm over.
another three
Yeah.
minutes if you want to pick up there.
Yes.
Okay. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. We will call you again. Okay. Okay. To go to those that are not in favor of the override, right? Okay, of the appeal. Don Henderson, please remember you have, your side has 10 minutes, so ever how you want to divide that, I have, I don't know, 15 cards, whatever. Okay, Mr. Henderson.
Good evening. Don Henderson, 223 Beebam Circle. I think most of my comments can be made mainly to the larger subdivision itself, but it pertains to the smaller one. You're going to hear throughout this evening many comments regarding drainage, traffic, density, all kinds of issues. One of the things I need to point out for you all, in this particular portion and in the major portion, it is in a critical drainage area. What is the definition of a critical drainage area? I'm going to let you decide that by yourself because the parish has assigned it that way. Right now, there's a great deal of congestion in the area, and the job of the zoning commission and the parish council is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. This area, I don't think anyone here is opposed to building in this area, but the density that's being suggested for this area is obscene. It cannot possibly handle it. The traffic issues right now, there's no foreseeable fix to the traffic in this area, because the two main highways that surround this area, Highway 190 and 1077, both of which are state roads, and there are no plans on the paper in the state to do any improvements on those roads that will ease the traffic. The zoning commission recognized that, and during their ending comments, I don't know which commissioner it was, but he got up and said, it's obvious that this area infrastructure is stressed currently. we don't need subdivisions of this magnitude in that area. If it can be downsized to be more moderate, perhaps we can. But even the zoning commission has heard this case twice. The first time was a little over a year ago. This last time, what was presented to the zoning commission was slightly less dense, but not significantly. And the zoning commission denied it twice, 100%. So it's now up to the council, and I think it's the council's position to go ahead and decide whether this area is ready for this kind of a development. Thank you.
Mr. Matthew Allen.
Thank you. I'm Matthew Allen, representing Northshore Riverwatch. And again, I'm going to try to split this up between the two different appeals. And some of the things that were said, that the 2040 plan says residential medium here. But the 2040 plan also says you shouldn't be developing intensely in a flood zone. This is a flood zone. It's been shown over and over again. And the fact that it's not in the Tchefuncte Basin does not mean the Tchefuncte River does not affect this. There's definitely overflow where the Tchefuncte and Tangipahoa combine and join during major floods in this area. This is putting up a blockage, a fill. And we're asking, is it really appropriate to put 90 homes in a flood hazard area? And then keep putting more fill in flood hazard areas. You end up with a self-fulfilling flooding prophecy. Just like the Aesop's fable, where the stork cannot reach the water in the bottom of the jar, so it starts putting pebbles in to raise the water so he can get a drink. That same type of issue is what we're looking forward to in the future if we keep developing slab on grade for residential in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce Lambert.
My name is Bruce Lambert. I live at 10062 Hereford Road, Folsom, Louisiana. I have some documents I'd like to share. They're actually for both appeals. I don't know if they have to be entered separately or how that be done. You figured out? I'm sure you all are competent. Again, one of the things I was saying, I am against this appeal, but not on the grounds that you think. One of them, a plan is not binding. A plan is guidance. A plan provides a structure. It is not a statutory law. One of the things in the plan that was mentioned is the most significant growth in St. Tammany Parish over the last 20 years has literally occurred on the 1077 corridor. I can pull out the document, show it to you. All this growth is occurring. There has been a capacity study on I-12. We've built the interchange, thank you very much. There was a study in 2021 saying we want to address traffic south of the corridor to the roundabout. That was 5 years ago. Nothing's happened. There was a recommendation in that same planning document for a special sub-area zone on 1077. That has not been done. So in 2016, when all those PUDs were approved, we did not have the knowledge that we do now. Since 2016, there has been a tremendous amount of floods of record in that corridor that did not exist when those previous PUDs were approved. The world has changed. The guidance that the zoning uses has changed. Your own recommendations about the moratorium and the PUDs show that the world has changed. Making it assume that it's like everything else pre-2016, which when all the other PUDs were put in, is no longer good governance because the world has changed. All the growth, according to the planning document that he mentioned, has been on that corridor. Repeated congestion studies have started but have never been fully executed. And the question is it really fair to the existing residents of that corridor to put more capacity on a road that has already been identified as being at capacity, and that top all that off, Louisiana DOTD wants to give it back to the parish. who will really own 1077 to fix the problems that have already been identified on this corridor? So the question is, do you help the current residents who live here versus the future residents who may live here in the future? So again, I'd like to say the documentation exists that shows that this is a bad project from the PUD and everything else. It's just the highway capacity cannot handle it. Thank you.
Ms. Donna Beaver.
My name is Donna Beaver. I live at 74495 Highway 1077. And I'm here tonight to ask you to please deny this appeal. The biggest thing in my mind is what's already been approved to be built on 1077. Currently, there's approximately 700 houses. We talked about this at the last meeting, last year. Those houses are all on the east side of 1077, north of Highway 190. They include Tantella Lakes, Providence Park, and Spring Lakes. This subdivision wants to be built in the exact same location on the west side of Highway 1077. And it's supposed to be one of the largest builds there's been. That, in my mind, just puts too many homes in a confined area. And also, please don't forget that this area is a special flood hazard area, which FEMA assigned that name to us. And we do have flooding issues, and people are genuinely concerned about those flooding issues. And building more high-density subdivisions will only help to decrease the number of trees that we have, to protect our floodplains. Please do not vote for this, and stand with the people that live in this area. And also, the Planning and Zoning Commission has denied this same build twice. Please consider that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John Dale.
I see I have less than a minute and a half left.
There's additional 3 minutes if you want to start, and then
that will be fine. That's what I was going to request.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm a resident of Spring Lakes, and located just to the north and east of the proposed developments. My wife and I love our home and the quality of life offered living in the area. This is despite the frequent signs of infrastructural stress, like extreme traffic and water system disruptions that already exist. The reversal of the zoning change denial will greatly exacerbate those and other problems that present a major risk to our quality of life. The addition of 700 plus homes in very close proximity to another 700 home development already in progress, Providence Park, will increase flood risk, add significant traffic to already congested roads, trigger social problems associated with increased population density, like poverty and crime, and cause a loss of property values. The developer refers to the existing developments. I agree they exist, but I think they offer an argument in our favor to add those additional developments to what's already there and already in progress is just going to exacerbate the infrastructure problems. That should be self-evident. I'll continue later.
Okay, thank you. All right. At this time, we have the rebuttal, 3 minutes. Okay, Mr. Marone, and I think Matthew George did not finish speaking. That's up to you, where you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to respond to a few of the comments. First of all, with regards to the critical drainage area, you all just redid your Unified Development Code. You specifically identified rules, regulations, and requirements for developing in sensitive areas. rely on your codes. That's why you put them in place. We're here to comply or to exceed those requirements. Rely on the code that you just put in place. With regards to the suggestion that we're in a floodplain, from the maps that we see, this entire project, this entire site, we do not believe is in the 100-year floodplain. I will recognize and agree it is a sensitive area. We are very keenly aware of that, and we have already taken steps to make sure we fully understand that so that we can properly and responsibly develop it as your code requires. With regards to the traffic, I would tell you this, that for years we dealt with moratoriums across the parish so that a couple of things could happen. There was an opportunity for the UDC to be passed, which is done, and for the parish to start working toward infrastructure improvements. I know that there has been a lot of work done in that regard, and there's more work to be done. But to suggest now that the moratoriums are gone and the UDC is adopted, that we've got too much traffic, I think that's a mistake. And I'm going to say something that people don't like to hear, but I believe that it's true. I believe that it's true, and I've said it repeatedly in the meetings with some of the residents and with you. And that is this, that DOTD is a very difficult organization to deal with. To get them to react, there are two things that has to happen. One is there has to be identifiable and certain growth in an area. That is what approval brings. The knowledge that we can bring to them collectively to say, this is what's coming. You have got to work on the infrastructure in this area. If we don't do that, all of these complaints that you have heard will continue to be complaints, because I would suggest to you, I believe they're going to fall on deaf ears, not here, not with you, who I know understand it and care deeply about it, but I think it's at DOTD. I believe it's a DOTD. So that may seem counterintuitive to say that we've got a traffic problem, but we need growth to help fix that problem. But I believe that is a path to getting the work done that we need to get done. And we're prepared to be partners in that work. The Northshore Business Council has already started that effort. And my client and myself are full supporters of that. We need to speak with one strong voice, all of us, to DOTD to get these improvements done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, you want to pick up okay. Mr. John Dale, would you like to finish? Remember, y'all have 3 minutes. The next speaker would be Mr. Bruce Lowry, if there's time.
Okay, I was next going to talk about the flood risk, but I think Mr. Matthew Allen has addressed that, so I'll move on with that. But I will just say quote one thing from his flood risk analysis, where he says, allowing this development is reckless, irresponsible, and an abuse of discretion. I could not agree more. Now, a few additional facts about traffic. The National ITE Trip Generation Manual, a document that, as I understand it, is used by traffic engineers in St. Tammany Parish, states each single-family home adds on average 9.5 trips per day to local roads. With 750 new homes, that is well over 7,000 additional cars on the road per day. Add in the 700 plus homes in Providence Park, and the number inflates to over 14,000 car trips per day. I trust that all of you have some familiarity with the existing traffic in the area, especially at the intersection of Ronald Reagan Highway and Highway 1077, and at the traffic circle of Highways 1077 and 1085. My wife and I certainly do. During the school year, it is not unusual for us to wait 20 minutes to get through this Ronald Reagan 1077 intersection, and another 20 minutes to get through the traffic circle. I leave it to your imaginations as to what 14,000 additional car trips per day will do. Threadbare promises of some future nebulous post-development mitigation is the epitome of placing the cart before the horse. And it is quite frankly insulting. In conclusion, I recognize and respect the opinions of the landowners, developers, and builders associated with the proposed developments. I submit that on balance, there is no question as to how the scales tilt. You must control land use in intelligent, fact-based analysis that preserves the quality of life that attracts and keeps people in St. Tammany Parish. The alternative is decaying neighborhoods, population exodus, a diminished tax base, and people voting not only at the polls, but with their feet. I implore you to support your Planning and Zoning Commission and to deny this appeal. Do not kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bruce Lowry?
Thank you. Good evening, and thanks for allowing me to speak with you. My name is Bruce Lowry. I'm speaking on behalf of the St. Tammany Rural Preservation Alliance. I realize I don't have much time, so I'll throw in one point that I don't think anybody has made yet, and that is that the appellants have advised the Planning and Zoning Commission that appellants are attempting to use the zoning change process as a mechanism to make their property more valuable. The Alliance believes that using a zoning change for this purpose is not consistent with a reasonable application of zoning restrictions or with practical justifications for changes which are acceptable to both the parish and the residents affected by those changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We do have 11 cards left, but we are out of time. Okay. I am going to bring it to the council. Mr. Laughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two questions for Paul and one question for Mr. Allen. Paul, if you would. The first question is just on the intensity of the zoning. Y'all are requesting S2, correct?
That is correct.
And that's one house one house with a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet.
That's correct.
Okay. Based off of my rough calculations, it seems that y'all could squeeze into S1 easily, which would, I mean, even, I did both calculations, the gross, all the area that's actually in this parcel, plus just the net, which is the 31.52 acres. Why aren't y'all requesting L1, I mean S1 versus S2?
Good question, and there's a couple of reasons. The first is what you have heard tonight and you've heard many times, and that is that we are trying to get to as an affordable end product as we can. That all starts at this level. So to go to S1 means higher costs at the end. The other reason that the S2 as opposed to the S1 is the market. The market is really very clearly more angled and supportive and pursuing the S2. And thirdly, when we look at what is around us, those other developments, Goodbee Square immediately to our east is S2 or actually more dense. So when we look at what's around us, it is S2 more than it is S1. So it's for those three reasons that we believe that the S2 is the proper request.
And then if you could please explain, the intention of this is to give these parcels to these lots to local builders.
That is correct.
Is there any way that y'all can make that legally binding? Because our fear is, because this is a zoning appeal, this is just the land use, what the actual plan and intention, albeit good, is still kind of irrelevant actually legally to what this is. Is there a way to make this legally binding that our local builders build on this?
Well, what I can tell you on that, and you're right, no, there's not anything, and I'll defer to your legal counsel on legal advice to you, but I think what he would tell you is that your zoning approval cannot codify that commitment. But we have not only made that commitment to you tonight, we have made that commitment to the Home Builders Association. We've made that commitment to individual home builders. We have made that commitment to a wide variety of people that have a very vested interest in that commitment. Mr. Forshag is a perfect example of that. So is it legally binding? No. As a practical matter, if it were not to go to home builders, then I would tell you that it would be very difficult for my client to continue to develop in St. Tammany Parish.
Thank you, sir. My next question is for Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Allen, the question that I have for you, and I'm going to tell a quick little story. So during Tropical Storm Arthur, Tropical Storm Me, I'm glad I'm named after it, we have a development in my district on Airport Road that just has been cleared and has just been re-engineered, hasn't been built yet, there's no concrete, it's still dirt. So that neighborhood actually flooded Airport Road for the first time in my history of living there. And so is it also your fear that this area floods and that the actual development itself may flood in the future? And I defer to your...
Yes, sir, that is definitely a fear of ours. And considering that the base flood elevation at the nearby Highway 190 stream gauge has exceeded base flood elevation 6 times in the last 40 years, there's something wrong with our estimations for base flood elevation that FEMA gave us. They go back to the 1980s when we're using floppy disks to store data. But also, you approve this, that continues the precedent, and you start filling more. You get another big one, another big one, and you fill that whole floodplain up. What are the consequences? Nobody ever looks at that. Yes, engineering say they can make it safe from flooding, but what about the rest of the community? That is y'all's call.
Mr. Allen, my second part of your question is, so what we had in my district for Tropical Storm Arthur was, rainwater-wise, the parcel actually held the water that it was engineered to.
Yeah.
But floodwater-wise, it didn't, because it didn't account for the floodwater that came to it, overflowed it, and then what was designed to protect us actually hurt us in my area. So could you explain the different types of flooding?
All right, what you talk about, the rainfall that falls on top, is what's called pluvial flooding. A lot of times in this area it's called flash flooding, but flash flooding is really more of a mountainous thing. And that's what these engineers designed for. They designed really well to reduce 25%, 200-year rainfall, great. That's not the 200-year flood from the Tchefuncte Basin. And we're looking at an issue of scale here. All right, this subdivision, how many acres, 300 acres or so? If you look at it on a map of the whole floodplain for the Tchefuncte River and all the water that's coming down, there's nothing more than a grain of rice. So y'all, this Parish Council really needs to look at the wider view of what these subdivisions will do and the cumulative effects of continuing to do this on the floodplain and the existing residents. That's what we're scared of. Thank you, Mr. Laughlin.
And Madam Chair, if you wouldn't mind at the end of this, would you please count the cards that we've had for this one before we vote? Thank you.
Okay, I think there were 15 that spoke against, but she will count them. Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I think I might have to ask, how about, I can't, right, Jeff, could you come up here, please? Appreciate you being here. I've got some questions that I need clarification on, and we're taking this case, this first one, this 31.5 acres. The request is to move the zoning from R1 to S2, correct?
Yes, sir.
S2 being the most dense residential zoning. R1 being one residential site per 5 acres. So you see that, to me, that's what we're talking about. Now we got to justify how we can get to that type of density. As my colleague just mentioned, S1 versus S2 would be a little less dense, correct? Because you could put one site per quarter of an acre in S1. So I'm doing some rough calculations here. It's not that big of a difference, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think through conversation I asked, because we brought up affordable housing, or is Mr. Hudson said is no longer affordable in St. Tammany, it's what's more attainable housing, which I agree with, by the way. I guess my question is this. With S2 on 31 acres, do you think you're going to get about 60 more houses or house sites, home sites, versus what S1 would give you?
I'm just calculating, and I'm not a builder or developer. I'm just guessing. Does anybody on your team have an idea how many more home sites are available on those 31 acres that we're looking at here? S1 versus S2. That's my question.
Yeah, I don't know the math exactly, but it would create a less number of more expensive lots and homes.
Okay.
And
did you and I, through conversation, didn't we talk about the smaller lots being S2, probably selling at roughly $70,000 a lot? And we talked about the larger lots in S1 being maybe 90,000, so about a $20,000 difference. Is that correct? Well, let's just say the numbers are off a little bit, but if you were able to get 180 lots in an S2 zoning versus 120 lots, and it could be wrong. It might be 150 lots versus 110. I'm not sure, but I'm using the numbers 180 versus 120. The 120 lots being sold at 90,000, the 180 being sold at 70,000. There's a difference of about $2 million. So $2 million to the seller, the developer, $2 million to the developer using the more dense zoning, S2. Would you say that's fairly accurate? I mean,
the lot count is not accurate.
Okay, the lot count's
This
not
project with an S2 zoning as presented to you today for 31.5 acres yields 91 lots. And that's all you can fit with S2. And that's my intention.
How many?
91.
91. So using the same percentage, you're probably looking at, if you have 91 in S2, you're probably looking at 70 lots in S1.
Perhaps.
Percentage-wise, maybe.
Perhaps, yes, sir.
Maybe. Okay, it's just a little math problem. I'm just looking at, anytime somebody's going to purchase some property and it's zoned R1, I would think you're going to be able to buy it a lot cheaper than if that property was zoned S1 or S2. Okay, so I get it. Everybody that develops properties and put together things are looking at how profitable is it. But I've got some other questions. When it gets to traffic, I'm not so concerned. I know we get the Riverwatch guy here, Matthew, but I'm not so much concerned about the floodplain, although it's not an ideal location because it is a natural floodplain. My concern is traffic, and the reason was mentioned by several people. The two roadways are two state highways, and we had our engineer will answer the question for us, and he did his research, and there's not anything on the pipeline from the state, the DOTD, which we've all agreed is moves at a snail's pace. And all you have to do is look at downtown Covington. How long did it take them to put an overpass that had us bottlenecked for years and years and years? 20, 25, 30 years before you get something done. My concern is with the two roads at this intersection where this development's being proposed, you've already got some traffic chaos. My job is to look out for the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. I don't find that intersection or those roads to be very good for, number one, my health. If I had to sit in that traffic, I'd be a mental case. So the health part's scary. You got accidents there that are pretty much happening on a regular basis, and that's a safety problem. And my issues, I took my oath to protect the citizens with health, safety, and welfare, and I don't know if this is correct, but yet I get the argument that it's compatible to other areas within that vicinity. You've got 4 or 5 other residential developments that are compatible. They get the same size lots, etc. Let's go back before that one development, the first one was built. That intersection at 1077 and 190, we'll call it Reagan Highway. I bet they didn't have the traffic congestion they got today, but they built that thing. Then they came along and built a second one, maybe to the east of it, and maybe the traffic got a little worse. And then they came along and built the third one to the north of it, and the traffic got worse. And they came along, and all the time saying, we're building something that's compatible to what's already been built. But yet, the density's happening, and we still, and I know how you feel about the DOTD, and I know how bad you and your representatives want to help us get DOT to move and to expand and make it 4-lane highways and put in the right types of turning lanes, etc. My fear is this: if we just keep adding on to the problem with compatible problems, I'm going to call it a problem, and it's compatible to maybe some of the other ones, but it's still, the other ones, before they were there was no traffic issues. The more we put, the bigger and more complex the traffic issues become in that area. It's, you know, the old cliche, the cart before the horse kind of thing, but it scares me. It scares me that if I were to sit here and say the commission made a mistake twice already by denying you all pretty much unanimously, they made a mistake, and that I should be part of the group that overturns their recommendation. It scares me that the traffic's going to be worse, because I don't see DOT within the next 10, 15, and I know it's a 20-year phase out. Has a consideration been given to maybe just one piece, a small piece, the first 5-year phase in, which I do understand we do need some properties to build, and we have builders that are trying to make a living, and they've got employees that are trying to make a living. I get it. There's a need for builders to have places to build, but is there not some R1 property or some other type of rural property out here in St. Tammany? Geographically, we're huge. You know, I'm sure there's some properties out there that don't have existing traffic problems. There is none. My problem is, why are we trying to consider putting more garbage, when it comes to traffic I'm talking about, more traffic garbage on top of traffic garbage that's already there? You know it's not going to be any better. You know that in the next 10, 15 years, the chances of the state 4-laning these highways are slim and probably none. I heard somebody say, we don't know, maybe the parish will take over the highways. Honestly, we don't have the funding that they have, but I guarantee you we could probably do a hell of a lot of better job than what the state's been doing when it comes to looking at, you know, every place I've been, it seems to me that they think they're proactive when it comes to development. They build out the roads. They put in the infrastructure because they anticipate these developments. I kind of wish that in St. Tammany, and I've discussed this with our director over there, how come we don't do planning first and then zoning? And the zoning would be based on if the plan made sense, and if the plan was approved, then we could change a zoning to meet that plan. We kind of do it backwards. That's for another discussion. But it really kind of, I'm not mad at anybody. Personally, I think you're a fine gentleman. I put myself in the houses and the homes of some of the people in that Goodbee area, and it's not my district, although it does kind of abut my district. But I put myself in their home. You know, if I had been living there for 20 years, 30 years, whatever the case may be, I'm sure I probably chose to live there and wanted to stay there because of the rural type community. You know, I got 5 neighbors who I really like, but we're 2 acres apart, 3 acres apart. You know, we got a little room. And for somebody just to sell stuff that's zoned as those homeowners and people knew those properties were when they bought it, okay, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, to go in and say, man, let's downgrade this thing from 1 house every 3 acres or 1 house every 5 acres, and let's put 3 or 4 of them on an acre and create that kind of density. And, you know, maybe I could live with it if the state had given me some highways and I don't have to sit in traffic for 20 minutes to get from my house to the interstate. every day, I maybe could better accept it, but that's not the case. People out there having heartburn and heart attacks while they're sitting in traffic and road rage and everything else. As I said, I'm not as concerned, although drainage is an issue, and being in a floodplain, if it happens every 10 years, every 50 years, whatever the case may be, I can't see this improving floodplain. I can see UDC now has been upgraded. We kind of built it up, but that's rainfall on the property, okay? The runoff has to be decreased by 25%, I get that. But we're talking in a natural floodplain, we're not talking about just rainwater at that site. You're talking about the rainwater that's naturally coming through that floodplain area, and maybe it won't affect it, but for the life of me, I don't think it's going to improve the floodwaters, okay? That's just me saying that. So let's look at the first phase. Again, there was some things said that really aren't accurate, and it was about traffic. And this gentleman, well, I understand your point, but it's a 20-year phase in, so you're not going to have 700 homes with what you said, 1,500 cars all of a sudden. It's going to be phased in, but over the next 20 years, you're going to have, you're correct, okay? Personally, I think I would love to see S1 as opposed to S2, a little less density. And secondly, you know, the first 5 years, there's going to be the first phase of roughly 100 homes being built, if I'm not mistaken, in that neighborhood, about 100 homes being built in the first 5 years.
This project will not be at that pace, no, sir. This project will be at a much slower pace.
Okay, so that's that second one we're going to be discussing.
Right.
Okay. Got it. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you. I know I'm talking a lot. I'm trying to get a lot. Look, I lost a lot of sleep over this thing, because this to me is very, very important for that part of St. Tammany Parish. I think we could find a better, I'm not saying the development's horrible. I think the location is not advantageous it's not the proper location for this site. This particular one with an S2, I'm not crazy about. With an S1, I would say that's worth trying and giving it a shot. And then when we get to the next one, I get a chance to speak on that one.
If you do it fast, yes.
Yeah.
If you do it faster than you're doing this one, yes.
So anyway, I'm just kind of getting a lot of things off my chest, and I got more notes than I ever took in school. So anyway, thank you for your time, and thanks for listening to me. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Rowland.
Okay, Mr. Smith. I'll be brief. Ross, if you don't mind. We like the outfit, by the way.
Ross, you are the best dressed person in the room.
Absolutely, positively.
I try to please.
A couple of clarifications. I know Mr. Smith hit on this a little bit. On the R1, I know we know the 91 lots, approximately 91 lots for the S2. The R1, I didn't do the math, so what does that look like lot-wise, or home sites?
I didn't do the math either. I can use my phone, do the math, and come back.
It's 30 what?
It's 38 acres.
It's 31.
31 acres.
Okay, don't get frustrated now. I'm just asking a question. I just started.
1,000 square feet, 44,000. I'll do the math and let you know.
Okay.
I'm sure some other people want to talk.
Okay. Okay. Can you briefly just discuss or just let us know why planning and zoning denied this, just the highlights of that, please?
I would just defer to what you heard for your own ears tonight. They heard the same thing. The same people showed up for Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
The Zoning Commission. They express the same opinions, and you're hearing them with your own ears tonight.
Okay, I appreciate it. Can you give me an idea, not exact numbers, of everything on 1077 as far as home sites that have been approved, not quite built yet, that would give us some idea of what's coming or in progress?
Sure.
Not counting, anything else that hadn't been approved, of course.
A rough number would be about 1,000.
Say that again?
A rough number would be about 1,000.
Okay. So I just want to have that clear too. One thing I wanted to mention, I have two things to add really quick. Infrastructure. My district includes the Claiborne Hill Bridge, And I know that took forever, and I think Mr. Smith mentioned that a little bit. It took forever to be built. So if we in dream world to think that infrastructure is going to catch up with this, I think we really have to kind of think twice on it, because it took 10, almost 20 years for that Claiborne Hill Collins Boulevard to be improved. Thank God it's improved. It's in my district. I'm very grateful. But if we really believe that the state is going to go ahead and come forward to have these turn-in lanes or additional lanes, I think we're really in dream world. One more thing really quick. I used to work right there by the Quick Stop, like half a mile down for 3 years of that 190, the Ronald Reagan 190 and 1077 corridor. When it would rain hard, when I left work, the ditches were overflowing on both sides in the middle of the road. That's a true story because I drove it. So if you don't think water is an issue, you better think twice, because I drove through it. So again, that's all I'm going to add tonight, and I know my colleagues have a few things to say. Thank you.
Ms. O'Brien.
Yes, thank you. You know, for us as a council, this is kind of difficult because it is a zoning case, and technically drainage and traffic is usually going through the permitting process after there's a decision made on zoning. But I will tell you, for me, if I vote yes, it's because of the commitments that have been stated on the record. I wanted to mention that I took the time to meet with both sides. And then I also contacted Daniel Hill, who is the Director of Engineering, and I wanted to ask him some very specific questions, which he was not able to answer because he didn't have a finite plan in front of him. But I did ask the question, Daniel, do you ever turn anybody down? In other words, if we approve a zoning case and they cannot meet the requirements of engineering, do you ever tell them no? He says, well, what we do is we tell them their plan is a no. And I said, well, what typically happens? He said, one particular case, they had to come back to them 14 times. They said, nope, you're not gonna do it this way. Try it again. Nope, you're not gonna do this way. It does not meet our requirements. Came back. Nope, he told me 14 times. Chairwoman, I don't think Daniel is here, but is Ted here? May I ask Ted a question if he's in attendance? Okay, well, while waiting for Ted, I believe he's supposed to be here from engineering. I'm gonna say, I know that there's a plan, we were presented, that would engineer this for a 200-year storm. Oh, there's Ted. Okay, come on up, Ted. I mentioned that I had a conversation with Daniel, and he told me about how in one particular case, people were told no over and over and over again, and as I recall, it was 14 times. Can you tell me, basically, unless and until, and this is what I'm understanding, and I want you to put this on the record, I want to make sure before I vote that you give me the answer I'm looking for. Until and unless something is engineered that our department believes is appropriate, there's no getting a thumbs up from the engineering department, correct?
I'm going to answer that as I'm supposed to. So it's not if we deem it's appropriate, is it is in accordance with the UDC that is adopted in our governing body right now. So it's not if Ted likes it, the engineering department thinks it's a good idea, does it meet the current codes on the book that are law in St. Tammany Parish? If the answer to those things is yes, and they have checked every one of those boxes, then a work order will be issued. If it takes 14 times for us to say no, nope, nope, they will not get one, because our ordinance says they have to meet these things before we can issue a work order. If they don't or they can't get a work order. If they do and they can, they will get a work order. Now, the question becomes, do we like our UDC and all that? That's not on the topic tonight, but Once they meet those requirements of the UDC, that's when we can say yes. If they never meet those requirements of the UDC, then we cannot say yes. I think that answers your question.
That does answer my question. Quite honestly, I was happy to hear we had 14 no's, because that meant that y'all are protecting the people.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I will tell you that there was a city block that was cleared of homes in my council district, and a big detention pond was built. Had it not been for that pond, residents in my council district would have flooded twice, possibly 3 times. I remember getting calls, thank you so much, because this made a huge difference. Councilwoman, may I ask Paul and/or Jeff to come up? I have a question.
Yes.
Can you tell me what's the acreage of ponds that's proposed for this plan?
For this particular plan, I'm looking for my engineer, which I don't see. Oh, there he is.
It's roughly 30% of the site.
So it's roughly
30% of the site?
30% of the site, so we're 31, so about 10 acres.
For this one?
Just for this one, for the
Just for
small
this
one, that's correct.
Okay, and I know this next question probably pertains to both of the appeals. We had been told that this site is a part of the Tangipahoa River Basin. There's concerns about the Tchefuncte River Basin. I was told something about a ridge blocking the water. Can you explain that to all of us?
I can. That's really a little bit more germane on the larger project.
Okay.
But I think your question is in relation to the Tchefuncte River flooding and its impact on this and the larger project. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
Okay. Yes. So what I have said and what you will hear more of in the large project is that, as you mentioned, we are not in the Tchefuncte Basin. I know Mr. Allen has said, well, the Tchefuncte Basin comes over 1077 and it floods this property. I would tell you, in particular with the large site, while it does come over 1077 on some occasions, that is rare. However, once it gets to the west side of 1077, there is a natural ridge that is between 1077 and our property. And that flood water does not top that ridge, even in those few instances in which it overtops 1077. It's going to go south, and it is not going to get to our property. With regards to this particular site, the smaller site, please remember what is between us and 1077. It's not open ground for this site. It's Goodbee Square, and it's countryside. So to suggest that somehow, if it comes over 1077, we're going to impede that flow, well, we immediately abut, please look at your maps, 2 existing subdivisions that are between us and 1077 and the Tchefuncte River. So I respectfully disagree for all of those reasons, and I believe the facts support that not only are we not in the Tchefuncte Basin, but the overflows that may come from the Tchefuncte Basin do not materially affect these sites.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I did hear some conversations about commitments from the state, but that was one of my colleagues who had spoken to someone, so I'm not going to address that. But thank you all for sharing your opinions. I know this is of tremendous concern, and quite honestly, we all want the same thing. We all want this to be done right. To be perfectly honest, that's what every single one of us want. Thank y'all.
Mr. Laughlin, you have your light on, but we have other council to speak. I will allow you if it's like one question or something, but I have 5 more lights on.
I'm happy to speak. If someone hasn't had a chance to speak since I was asked to speak the second time, I'm happy to let them go up front. I know the new system doesn't accommodate that very well.
Okay. All right. Ms. Casabon, you're next. Would you like the other speakers? Okay. All right. Mr. Corbin.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. I have a couple questions. I will start at, I guess, different people. Rick, I don't know, Ross, if you've got your number. My number's 62, roughly.
I came with 70.
Okay, so I think you're high, but that's okay. Jeff Valley, could you please come up to the microphone for just one moment? In your assessment of S1 versus S2 for this particular tract of land, in order to, as part of the proposal or what the concept is, you're giving up, as mentioned earlier, 10 acres of land.
Correct.
That you're setting
We're
aside.
not rezoning.
Setting aside to support drainage or whatever else needs to be done.
More than that, actually, too, Councilman, we are setting aside buffers on all of our perimeters in order to be good neighbors, if you will. But that gives up the opportunity for us to get more lots.
Right. So it also,
That's right.
but also, it's not as simple as you might still be able to get 91 lots if you gave up all the amenities that you put in order to make this a more viable
Perhaps.
project.
That's right.
Perhaps.
Yeah,
I'm not-
that's right. If like we maxed out and didn't accommodate any of the concerns we've heard, such as buffers, drainage, then we could get more lots with an S1 than we could. But we've constrained ourselves to try to acknowledge the concerns and still make the project, continue to be viable.
Okay.
And that's what makes S2 essential.
Can you give us the relative housing costs as you have to look forward in some way to do your business cases? What do you think the relative house cost will be to a consumer for an S1 versus an S2?
On this property, I think the S2 where it's currently modeled is in the upper 300s to the lower 400s, and I think an S1 zoning would push it closer to the $500,000 price point.
Okay, in this subdivision.
In this subdivision, that's right.
Okay. I think that's all I have for you.
Okay.
Teddy, you have just a moment? So Ted, and this is really it really applies to both projects. We've heard a lot about floodplains and flood analysis, but this is a zoning case as opposed to the next phase of the project.
Yes, sir.
What kind of engineering studies and reports have to be, assuming that the zoning would be reversed, and so now the zoning was allowed. Can you walk us through some of the reports and some of the engineering analysis that you would require not only to be submitted but also to be reviewed and approved as part of moving through that process, and what at a relatively high level what those steps of that process are?
Surely you want to go for just the drainage aspect of this, or
drainage and traffic?
Making sure, just
Yep.
Do you care at all about the subdivision process as well, or more just the technical requirements that would be? Because the subdivision.
I will allow you to tell me what you think I need to know.
Yes, sir. So in a hypothetical theory where the zoning gets overturned, the next step for them would be then to come back to the planning commission, same body but different board, same board but different body, sorry, for a concept plan. Concept plan's going to be really where they just lay it out and do everything they're kind of telling you right now with showing buffers, showing ponds, showing roadways, and there's really still, even at that point, there's not a lot of technical data on that one. There's ultimate disposal maps and things like that, will serve letters, but really you're not even in the nitty-gritty on that one yet. So that would incur another public meeting. It would incur probably a lot of the same questions and concerns we are hearing tonight, and we still would not have that answer. Now, I can't tell them that they won't provide that for the concept. I can just say it is not required at the time of the concept. I know they have done some preliminary hydro, some preliminary traffic stuff, none of which has really been presented to us, and it's not a knock at them. They don't have to present that yet. It wouldn't be until we get to the second or really final public hearing for a development like this, which is now referred to in the new UDC as the final plat and construction approval. That is when we really get a full set of civil design plans that show us how we're grading the site, how we're draining the site, the size of the pipes that are going in there, and with that would be accompanied a full-blown traffic study that would really be a joint study between us and LADOTD. We would both have to review and approve that one. They would have ultimate say because, as mentioned earlier, both roadways are state-owned roadways, and more importantly to your initial question would be a full-blown hydro report. Now, our ordinance requires us to evaluate both coming off-site, in-site, riverine backup, all these things would be generated in that hydro report. Our ordinance today, as written, require them to do a 25% reduction of the 100-year storm event. The 100-year storm event is a pretty typical national average. What you reduce from it, whether it be pre versus post, 10%, 25%, that's what you see differ across the state, the country. That's municipality based. But ours is a 25% of that one. Now, I know they've gone on record saying they're doing above and beyond that, but fortunately, a zoning case, we really can't hold them to that. Right. Now, that could be a stipulation at the time of concept that says you're going to do these things, because I think there's reasonable stipulations they can make, but I'll make sure to look at Emily and say I'm not misspeaking there. But that is the hydro that's on the books by the UDC right now. It would be a 25% reduction of the 100-year storm event, where we would have to accommodate both on-site and off-site drainage, as well as the floodplain storage. Our ordinance right now require them to mitigate any impact to the floodplain for the inundation of that property, meaning anything from natural ground to where we know inundation occurs on that property for a 100-year storm event will need to be mitigated, pulled off-site, and provided as additional storage so that water can back up into there. Now, there's a lot of questions about this, and we don't have a lot of data on it, but there are concerns about there's two different floodplains here, how they interact with each other, with storm events. All that is very, very technical, and I don't have a lot of information on it, but we're very knowledgeable about the concerns, and we share those. So.
Okay, so and how does, one of the questions, and you kind of hit on, is has to do the riverine flooding is not accounted for in the UDC. Isn't it accounted in some way, shape, or form in the field mitigation plan, or?
Yes, sir. That's how our current ordinance responds to riverine flooding.
So you have to go, you may find doing your analysis, you're going to come in with a base flood elevation that may be up someplace, which is going to require, if you're slab on grade, to build above the base flood elevation by a certain amount, as defined also in the UDC.
Yes, sir.
And then we'd have to go analyze that, bringing that fill in, that it's offsetting and not contributing and making the ability of the floodplain to function any worse than it is today.
Yes, sir. And actually, our ordinance requires those two numbers for riverine flooding, or that fill mitigation you referenced, and that 25% reduction volume that I referenced earlier, be calculated separately, meaning we're not double dipping in those. So when the river's up and then we get rain on it, we still should have that volume in both of those scenarios. We do a lot of research on that one.
So in that case, you're actually reserving for two distinct components, but they may occur at the same time.
Absolutely.
So you have to reserve or plan for that and consider that as part of your analysis.
Absolutely. That's why we do not let them calculate that total volume cumulatively. Now, that's not to state that they can't be located in the same area of the property, meaning the pond is twice as big now because we need to account for both of those volumes,
right.
But those volumes are accounted for separately.
Okay. All right. Just I'm going to check some things off. As a project's gone on, has a developer historically ever said, I can't get there? Or they've had to make enough trade-offs to get to the point that something...
It would be the 14 no's referenced earlier in this meeting.
Okay.
Yes, there's, like, say, you can always engineer. That's kind of what an engineer's job is, right? To figure out how to handle this problem or get to a solution for this issue. So we can always kind of engineer things to an extent. There's obviously always financial, timing, all those burdens factor in, but I would reference the 14 no's before, and then ultimately, finally, a yes on 15.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ted.
Yes, sir.
Ross, did he disappear? Gina, is Ross available? Thank you, Ross. One of the things that I've heard in the discussion tonight is confirmation or conversations about somebody buying a piece of property and assuming the zoning is stagnant and never going to change over time. Is that a credible assumption?
It's not a right to have a zoning change. It's a right to ask for a zoning change, so therefore I can't say if one will take place or not. Historically, obviously, every month we go through zoning changes. So yes, there's an opportunity for a zoning change.
But in a growing parish, we no longer use wagons and horses. So in a growing parish where travel are making changes and people are moving into a space, would you not expect, as a planner, like the 2040 plan and some of the other plans, be looking at other areas within the parish that may in the long run have zoning theoretically could possibly change over time because they represent appropriate places to add additional homes, for example.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of, a growing parish like ours, and we have been for 20, 30 years, moving at a fast pace. So yeah, it is reasonable that someone will come in and ask for a zoning change. Whether they get it or not is up to the zoning commission and this body.
And are we going to go, in the not too distant future, going to go through comprehensive rezoning?
That will be a targeted rezoning rather than comprehensive. It got too big and too cumbersome to do on parish-wide of 850 square miles, minus 2 municipalities.
So we're going to do significant rezoning.
We're going to do some targeted rezoning.
Evaluating, okay.
Yep.
And that would, I would assume, would align, as part of that process, is going to be taking a look at the 2040 plan, the multimodal transportation plan.
Absolutely.
Those guiding documents and studies that have been done in other places to go say, okay, based on these other studies and bringing all this information together, this is what there may be a bias towards appropriate zoning based on the results and the projected growth of our parish.
And that's correct.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and the New Directions 2040 did call for a 1077 corridor plan that has not been completed yet or started.
Okay. All right. Oh, Ross, one other question. In the report for this, sorry, I wasn't ready. It references a 63.28% total congestion rate. Can you explain that to what that means? It's
I might defer to Ted on that one.
Paragraph 7, it's tied to the multimodal transportation plan. The road has a total overall congestion of 63.28%, seems pretty accurate to me, which indicates the actual measured speed of vehicles on a roadway as a percentage of potential free flow speed that would exist under ideal conditions.
Does it state a certain direction on a certain street?
I just read it. That's
What
it.
was it? I was looking at Ted, so I really kind of maybe missed it. What?
It says, I'm sorry, the
No,
report notes heading west
yeah.
from Covington, Ross.
Okay, got it.
Paragraph 7, page 48.
This
of our
is the zoning
package.
staff report. It's a multimodal plan.
I just don't know what that's telling me.
You familiar with that?
63% congestion?
Yeah.
No, I'm not, I didn't write the staff report, but I would imagine it's talking about the congestion and the level of service on the highway at the time of whenever they did those studies. That's generally what happens when they're talking about congestions, is how it's the efficiency of flow on the highway right now.
Well, for example.
But I don't know what this report is. That's just an assumption. I didn't read it.
So all right. So
I
for
can read it if
example,
you need
what I
one.
was
I'll
trying
get you clarification.
Okay, I was just trying to understand if the speed limit was 50, this tells us that it's depressed by 33%?
Yes. And
Is that what that means?
let me find out, get clarification. I'll let you know.
Okay.
I can do that in a few minutes.
All right, thank you very much.
Whoa.
Thank you, Chairwoman Tanner.
Okay. All right. Mr. Beside.
Hey, I just have one question for Paul or Jeff, either one of you guys. Well, actually, two questions. Oh, you can't hear me? All right, sorry. I know you probably said it, but how many houses are in this phase again on the 31 acres?
91.
91, okay. And in which phase will this piece be built in? And this is the one for the local builders,
This
right?
is the local builders,
Yeah. Which
yes.
phase will this be in?
So this will be the first.
This will be the first?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And I'll speak more to the second appeal, but thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Phillips.
Hey, Russ, real quick, you talked about the comprehensive rezoning. The council would have to approve that, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Ted, I guess you were talking about Riverine. That would be referencing watershed coming down from the north all through there. That's like a regional watershed for like, it's not, it's regional in a sense. It's a couple different states, the amount of water that's coming down from the north. So you guys take that into consideration along with the rainfall when you're looking at the amount of water that's going to come through there, correct?
It's a more complicated answer than that, but I'll do my best for you. So it depends on what watershed we're talking about, on whether other states influence it or not. You look at the Mississippi, it's all the way throughout the country. If you look at certain ones just in St. Tammany, other states do not influence it. Depends on where we're talking about. For this one particularly, and what I'll reference when we're talking about the fill mitigation plan and the inundation on the site is the inundation we map is based off the 100-year storm event. That's telling us what the river does during that 100-year storm event. What it doesn't accommodate, and we can't accommodate, but we don't require to accommodate in our ordinance is what happens when it rains, north of us for 2 days and then that rain comes down for us for 2 days. If it's above a 100-year storm or prolongs, that's not necessarily going to be referenced in that or reflected in that. It's just how you model it. It's a very complicated hydro question, but it can and it can't. So I'm doing a bad job giving you an answer on that one, but it depends on what you're actually asking on what our hydro does.
So what kind of elevations, the height of the water has been coming down through there over the last 50 years, let's say? And I know Riverwatch has done some studies on that. I don't know if you guys are in agreement with that or not.
There's rain gauge
and how
data.
How wide is this watershed?
These are great questions. I can get you answer. I don't know square miles on watersheds off the top of my head, nor do I know gauge heights. I actually think Mr. Matt Allen probably would know more appropriate than me, but yes, we have gauge data on most of our main rivers in St. Tammany Parish. They give historical data from, I think some of them go back to the 80s, if not before that. And again, Matt Allen could probably correct me if I misspeak anything here, but they calculate when we had those, y'all hear the big 2016 floods, 2020 floods. We have gauge data on that one on how high that water got at certain areas in St. Tammany Parish. Okay. And then we have models that show inundation on properties that's also associated with your FEMA flood models that show where we expect inundation during certain rain events.
And one last question, because I'm going to ask Mr. Allen up next. Is anybody flooded in these subdivisions in that area? And when and how many times or how many?
I think I know of some issues that happened maybe in 2016 in Spring Lakes, if I'm not mistaken. I won't claim to know every single one of them that flooded, but I do know there were some issues in there. I do think that was before the full build out of the subdivision and all the infrastructure was complete and functioning. And you get a big over 100-year storm event, you're going to have issues. And but I don't know of every other home or subdivision in that area. But I do know that yes, it's a sensitive area. That's why we studied it. That's why we're looking at it. Anytime you join two basins together, it's something we got to watch for.
No, I get it. I was a geography major. That's why I'm sort of looking at the regional aspect of this.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ted.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Allen, can you address any of those questions?
That was a lot of questions to remember. But I would like, if I may, just real quick, I'd like to point out, I think Mr. Marone misspoke, and he made a statement that he didn't know that would be flood hazard or areas on it.
He asked a question. You need to answer the question. You have already spoke, so you need to answer his question.
All right, I just want to point out the staff analysis report said, yes, there are. But, all right, what was the first question? I have a lot going on here.
Well, we're looking at the watershed. This is coming down from the north, too. It's not only rainwater, the rainwater from the storm itself. This might be a regional storm, maybe 100 miles up north. It's going to come down through there, And, so what kind of elevation, water height are we looking at coming through there? Is it a wall of water? Is it just rising water?
It's generally rising water. You can think of a flood as an extended wave almost, with the crest that comes by, as it's coming up, the water's going up, and then as that crest goes by, the water starts going down again. And, but one of the issues is and the engineer, I believe I heard him say, they really don't do much study on that part of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I'm losing my hearing. My wife lets me get hearing aids. But actually, FEMA requires a study for this river of the flow. It's not just storage. This water is flowing down here. And yeah, they'll put storage in, flood mitigation for the fill and all, but it fills up real quick. And what happens when that water keeps going? And again, we have issues with FEMA also being not the most accurate for the area with the lack of data. But also, you'll need to look at Chapter 900 in the Unified Development Code. They have a special flood hazard area section. And for the Tchefuncte River, the whole floodplain is about conveyance and flood flow. And FEMA requires a study of that to prove that you're not going to redirect the water and raise flood heights more than a foot in the surrounding community. I have never, in 20 years up here, seen that happen.
Thank you,
It's
sir.
time to start. Thank you.
Thank you. A
Has
specific
anybody?
question, Pat, if you ask a specific question, you need to answer it. Don't
Yes, ma'am.
go all over the place, okay?
Okay. Flooding, has any of the subdivisions up there flooded since they've been put in? I mean, we're going back, let's go back. How many years have they been put in the subdivision?
In the Goodbee area, it's been going on since '08 pretty much. That's when I first got started. On the other side of the river, same latitude, same base flood elevations, they put in a bunch, and they almost all have flood issues, including some of them that have houses that flood. And they're saying they did all the required stuff for them. But again, this is an unpredictable river system. We don't have enough data on it. And considering base flood elevation has been exceeded by 2 feet multiple times, that's something that we have to consider before we put 700 homes in an area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Phillips?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Impostata?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question for Mr. Marone and Mr. Valley. This is a major zoning intensification request. I was also denied by the zoning commission. Would you even consider just moving it to an S1?
We have considered moving it to an S1. The reasons that we have chosen not to thus far are the three that I mentioned to Mr. Laughlin's question, which is largely the price of the homes. We're trying to keep them as low as we can. The compatibility with what is around us. And what the market is telling us. So yes, we have considered that, and I appreciate the question. We believe that those three factors really suggest that the best thing for this site is the S2.
Okay. That was it.
Okay, thank you. Martha, if it's okay with you, I have Mr. Corbett, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Laughlin. Since they spoke before, I'm going to go to Mr. Laughlin. Please keep it very short and specific.
Yep. I have a quick question for Ted and Ross, if y'all want to come up together. Y'all can both figure out how you want to answer this. Based off of what we've learned tonight, it appears that in the proposed plan, which is not technically relevant to the issue tonight. Tonight's issue is only for zoning. And in this parish, we kind of do things a little bit backwards. We tend to zone first and then plan later. It appears that they are, and I'm seeing this as a red flag, they are already going to dedicate 1/3 of the 31.5 acres to drainage only. And then when you add in the additional 6 acres that they're not going to rezone, you're getting to like 42% of this parcel needs to be done for drainage. And all that's screaming to me is we need to leave this parcel alone and let it stay one house per every 5 acres. Because it doesn't look like the juice is worth the squeeze. If you got to dedicate 42% of the property to handle drainage, this doesn't look like the best practice to approve this. And I'm just trying to understand it. Is this our regulations that require that much? Are they being generous? Because I was trying to understand, and this is what the thing is, why I need y'all to interpret our rules is, when I was debating why don't they go for S1 versus S2, because it seems like the few number of houses, they're only asking for 60% of what they could. It looks like that parcel could handle 130 to 145 homes under the S2. But what they're asking for is 91, so my question is, let's just go for S1. But if they have to mitigate 30% to ponds, and then they're given another 6 acres for that. I mean, am I understanding this correctly? That's the only reason I'm asking. I don't need your opinion. Just does that make sense based off of what I'm...
Yes, sir. I'll take a stab at that one. So I believe the 30% they reference is probably more of the required infrastructure and ponds. So I would assume that would include roadways as well as the drainage, and I believe that number is probably being based off of the 250-year storm event they intend to detain on this site. But a general good rule of thumb when we're at these types of zonings or concept is, hey, 30% of your land is going to go to green spaces, ponds, rec, park, roadways. That's just that once you factor in all these requirements, setbacks, all these things, that's a general rule of thumb for generalized planning of laying out subdivisions.
But just to be clear,
speaking on any part of there, I would like them to say that I am.
Right,
but that's usually what they do.
I believe when Ms. O'Brien, Paul answered Ms. O'Brien and said 10 acres of the 31 are going to be ponds.
He can definitely clarify if I'm misspeaking for them, but I believe general practice for development sites is, hey, take 30% of your land and know we're going to do stuff with that as far as regulations. Buffers, ponds, roadways, parks, you name it. Every municipality has slightly different standards, but it's a good rule of thumb in St. Tammany. If I've got 100 acres, 30 of it's going to need to be for my infrastructure and requirements.
I just feel like if I were looking to buy this parcel and I knew I had to lose 42% of it, I wouldn't buy it. I'd pass.
I think that's a question for them. Yes.
Thanks. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I had.
All right, thank you. Mr. Smith, please keep it short.
Specific question, and this would be Mr. Valet and Mr. Marone, please. From what I just heard, you guys are against the S1, converting S2 to S1. Is that correct? It's not acceptable to even consider S1?
That is what I've said the last two times I was asked that question.
Right.
But we have since had a chance to confer, Mr. Smith, and our position has changed on that.
That sounds like a little bit of music to my ears. Number two, why is it that you couldn't sell the same $300 and something thousand home on a lot and only increase it by $20,000 instead of going to a $500 or $550,000 home? My point being, I understand the lot would sell for a little bit more, $20,000 roughly. That $20,000 added to the house that you had hoped to sell on the S2, right? The lower cost. I just think mathematically it could work. You don't necessarily have to increase the price of the house because the lot changed to S1. I can see the $20,000 additional cost.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the question. I think the best way to answer is that typically the home pricing is set based on a percentage of what the lot cost is to the total price. So a 20% or $20,000 increase, maybe a better way to look at it is it's more of a 25 to 30% increase. And the homes here that would start in, I think these homes will be in the upper 300s. That would put another, 25,000 on the lot, puts 100 on the house, more or less. And I mean, we're spitballing, but there is no doubt, I mentioned this before, that S1 will result in a lesser number of higher priced homes and lots.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But if that is what the commission or the council, forgive me, is, I'm willing to go to S1. I just think it's not exactly what the market is telling me, nor what the housing needs assessment is telling me, but I would concede nonetheless.
And the reason I say that, again, my concerns with traffic is less density, fewer homes, less traffic. Okay?
Fair.
That's my thinking on it. So thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you. Mr. Corbett.
Yes, I'll be fairly quick also. I had one question for you guys, then one for Ross and Ted. For you, my cohort, Councilman Laughlin, made the point about giving up 42% of the land, and that's a question is why you do it. I would assert that the business case either closes or doesn't, and closes mean that it works. And so the UDC as it exists today to put homes in this location, fundamentally I'm listening to you say it requires me to reallocate, use land in a certain way, and the fact that it's 42%, my business case still closes at those numbers. Is that fairly accurate?
Yes, that's very accurate. So every development gives up a large portion of the land, we actually utilize it because drainage is critically important to our project. So you're really not giving it up, you're just not putting it directly into commerce. Now, this site is particularly heavy on the amount of open space created by the buffers and the ponds, because we're, again, being good neighbors with the buffers and the ponds, we're acknowledging and anticipating, because it's in a critical drainage area, that the level of approval standards is going to be higher.
Okay.
But in short, every development gives up 30–40% of the land to necessary infrastructure to bring the lots to commerce.
But in a case where it's challenging, you may have to give it more.
A little more, that's
you.
right.
Ross and Ted, and this is pretty simplistic. We're here today, and there's a set of requirements that we're operating against to evaluate this project. And those are the requirements as codified in the UDC that was approved August 2024, roughly, I believe. If I look back at the other comparative properties that we have talked about, or has been asserted that there's been flooding in some of those other areas, two of those properties were approved 10 years ago, and 4 of those properties were approved 20 or more years ago. Is it safe to say that the requirements required to develop those properties 10 years ago and then 20 years ago were less stringent and not as significant as they are today?
I'll defer to engineering on that one, but the answer is right, yes, but I'd rather have an engineer, say it.
Yes. I concur. Yeah. No.
So
yes, sir.
my only point, I mean, that seems like it's just as my friend Miss O'Brien said, it's a no-brainer. But the point is, we have different analysis tools today than existed before. We have different ability to go gather data than we had before, and we have a different set of requirements that reflect what's happened to these we've learned, hopefully, from what happened with the set of requirements that were in place 20 years ago when we released new developments, and again, the requirements that were in place that guided the development of properties 10 years ago. Those seem significant, and I just don't want to make sure they're not missed. We're operating on the latest version of the UDC and the latest set of development and analysis tools that didn't exist in those time frames.
Yes, sir. To give you all, I was messing around. I'll give you a more real answer. Yes. As the time goes on, development increases, we learn, we grow. It's very natural. Very rarely do UDC standards ever get lesser, right? We grow from them. We learn, did it work? Did it not work? Did we have to tweak it? 20 years ago, absolutely. 10 years ago, it is fairly similar, but to your point, there's a lot better data now, even as far as 2 years ago, as it relates to LiDAR and just all kinds of different tools at the disposal of most of the engineering community now that really produces a much better product. Now, a lot of them, too, is you also have to be mindful that even though we designed something for a 100-year storm event, there has been cases that we get greater than that. Right. And if we get greater than that, even if we design it perfectly to the T, it will exceed those requirements, and that's just something the entire world fights. That is not a St. Tammany specific issue. We can't predict, modify, or control Mother Nature. It just does not happen like that. So we use our best practices, we use standards that are accepted nationwide, and if we ever have to increase those standards, that's why I said UDCs generally get more conservative, more tight, more refined, usually never less. So they are getting better, we have better tools, but you also have to be very mindful that, it's like
that's Mother Nature.
You can't control everything. If we could, this would be a wonderful place to live, and we would use that all across the world, and no one would ever have a problem, but that's not the reality of life today. Okay. So that's something, and also be very mindful too, flooding in streets and flooding in homes are two very different things that are very, very important to us, but when you see flooding, is it a home or is it a street? Because these types of things do matter on how we evaluate things and where we need improvements.
Okay.
So,
thank you very much. And I think that Mr. Allen, at least I've sat through at least 2, if not 3 briefings with him talking about this particular developments, and I think he has said in each one of those developments that the data available, other than pictures 40 or 50 years ago, is very different than the data that's available today. Yes, sir. For analysis. Fair? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Corbin, your reading of the multimodal transportation plan congestion percentages were correct based on posted speed, based on percentage of that speed. So yes, that's exactly what it is.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Councilwoman Tanner.
Mr. Bender, can you keep it short? We still got another appeal, and Martha still needs to talk. Please.
Now, let's keep it short. Or is that specifically aimed at my past history?
Both.
I'm just joking. I will do that, Madam Chair. Mr. Weiner, can you come up here a second? I just have a few questions. First of all, in May, you committed to me.
Always do, sir.
Yes, that you would appropriately dress for the July month, and you have.
I don't let you down.
Yes, congratulations. So, I heard Mr. Valley, I think, if 10 of these 31 acres are going to be buffer and retention pond?
That's called.
Okay.
Infrastructure.
We've got 21 acres. Okay. How do we get 91 lots out of 21 acres? I've heard 60, unless I misunderstood him, one time he said 60 lots. Is it 60 or is it
So
91 out of the whole 31 acres?
I think where you heard the 60 was the conversation between myself and Councilman Corbin.
Okay.
Talking about an S1 modification.
Okay. You know, I'll just end with this, Madam Chair. I
Yes.
think Mr. Smith made a very good point, and I know it's not the way we operate, but like looking at the next appeal, which I'm not going to discuss, but
Thank you.
all of a sudden, the same request takes into account from the Planning and Development Department, and I'm sure they did this accurately, that the planning side for the same size lots present a problem. But it's not mentioned in this. So, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, if this were to get approved, and Mr. Val, you don't have to answer this, okay? If this were to get approved and the next one get denied, we've approved 30 acres. And we don't have to approve the 275. I've read that already. Am I correct, Emily? And I'm not saying, I don't know how anybody's going to vote. But, I don't know. It's just a difficult decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cassavon.
Okay. Is my mic on this one?
Yes.
Okay. This is from my fellow council people, that a little bit of history of this particular, how we got to where we are right now, the point of the subdivisions. This particular area, the developments really began right after Hurricane Katrina. The developments in the parish had building ordinances and plans and designs were made according to our codes then. Under President Cooper's administration, we did approximately a 5-year moratorium was placed on the parish so we could look at how we were building to do some smart growth. With that, the committee was based on business people, civic organizations like the Bayou Lacombe. They were very active in looking at these ordinances and developments, and developers, engineers, all these people came together on how we could change our codes in order to be able to build in areas better than we did before. In this particular area, I think the first subdivision was Whiskey Taverns. That was a subdivision, which I found out last night. I signed the plat when I was still teaching, that was one of the first subdivisions that all the people from St. Bernard Parish and their neighbors moved into, and to this day, that is where they live, and I've had no complaints on that. Then Spring Lakes came into effect, and planning and zoning did deny it. It was reevaluated, sent to court, but that was overturned by the courts, and they were allowed to build. As scared as we were, as complicated as that turned out to be, it's a beautiful subdivision. Then we had Countryside and Goodbee Squares. What I'm trying to say is every time a development came up, we had these same questions and thoughts. But with this development, this is 38 acres for our local home builders, which is something I've asked developers to do, to give land to our local home builders. During that 5-year moratorium, they've really suffered. And along with them, it is also the business people of this community, where electricians, plumbers, and this sort of thing, and I've heard from them. And this would be a great boost to them. It will, and it's just something that I think that we really need to build this parish. We're worried about, we're trying to redo our tax base or figure out how we can change things when our building study tells us that we need more homes. I have checked with the assessor. I've tried this. I've talked to more people about these two zoning cases, but one of the questions that I asked the assessor is the effect on the parish. And I was told that our assessments are high because of supply and demand. And that is one of the reasons that everybody has such a high assessment, that, yeah, we're a desirable place. This is where they want us to be. So I feel like this is another way of adding homes. And again, it's through phases. Mr. Smith, I know that you are concerned about the traffic. I flipped out about the traffic at a meeting the other night. I contacted our liaisons between the Department of Transportation and St. Tammany. It was Greg Cromer, and had a long discussion with him about this traffic. And what he was saying was that, it was stated that the road would be turned over to the parish. That would be one of the things that, they're not going to do this end. They're going to do your end, the Brewster end of 1077. But after talking to him, and I think he's president of the Northshore Business Council, Mr. McWilliams, I found out there is a meeting in November with the DOTD and everybody involved. I've asked to be involved with it, but I think also many of the developers to meet and talk about, this corridor. But the part about us taking it over, we don't have to accept it, but it's just like several roads in my district, before they took them over, they had to do the improvements on them, and whether that means widening, culverts, whatever. There was something mentioned about turning lanes. The developer is required to do those, whatever they tell him to do on this road. But the biggest thing that I'm seeing is that this is the last development to the north. It's about 2 miles from the Tangipahoa parish line. They're not stopped building. They have continued to build. That would be to the west. To the north, we have the Heart of the Pines. That also is like a half a mile from St. Tammany Parish line. And that's where a lot of this traffic is being generated through 1077. I come out, and where I turn, you have to wait. This is a thoroughfare that I don't think DOTD can continue to ignore. Also, I've seen developments put in to where once they have been approved to move forward, then that is when they take a serious look and have to, do something about the road. But my concern right now on this particular 38 acres is that we help our community, help our tax base, and let's move forward. I want to make a motion to approve this 38 acres for the local home build. Pardon me? What is it on the paper?
It's the current application, or as originally submitted, was from R1 to S2. The applicant has indicated verbally their willingness to amend.
I would prefer, and again, you have to stop and think, what they were saying about the S1 and the size of the homes, we're looking at affordability, or I like the way, what was the term he used? Attainability. I think if we move forward with the higher zoning, I think they've done their calculations with the S2, is that what it, yeah, that I think this is something that is obtainable for our local home builders and the people that would be interested in it.
Then Councilwoman Casamon, the three options, and you can pick which motion you submit, would be a motion to concur with the denial, a motion to override the denial, which would effectively bring it to the S2, or a motion to override the zoning commission's denial based on the applicant's verbal amendment of the application to request a zoning change from R1 to S1.
The second one?
The second one. So that's the motion that you're making.
Read it again, so everybody understands.
The motion, I believe you're putting forward, is a motion to override the zoning commission's denial of the application, which would mean the zoning, if approved by the council, the zoning would change from R1 to S2.
Correct. That's the motion.
Okay. I need a second, and Mr. Valley, you concur, you do not want to change? Are we talking?
Do you want to change it? I think the affordability.
I just want to make clear that we do what?
Certainly, we will obviously defer to the council, but we are willing to go to the S1. And we would be very content with the S1. So we will leave it to the council's discretion, but the S1 is something that we would be willing to accept.
Okay. All right. We'll concur with the S1.
So that will be then a motion to override the zoning commission's denial based on the applicant's verbal amendment of the application to request a zoning change from R1 to S1.
That's it. Okay.
And a vote?
You second it.
I'll second.
Okay. The same. So a vote yes?
So a vote of?
A vote yes.
Yes.
Means you're voting to override and have the zoning change from R1 to S1.
All right.
Okay. Please vote by your lights.
Okay. All right.
Has everyone voted?
The motion passes with 11 yeas, 2 nays, and 1 absent.
And then we will need a motion and a second to introduce an ordinance for the zoning change.
Can you hold on a moment?
Okay, hold on.
So moved to introduce it as an ordinance?
A motion and a second.
Get a second.
To introduce an ordinance.
In a second.
Okay.
I introduced. Just a second.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Item 2.
Oh, we don't.
H1 Associates, Jeff Valley, appealing the Zoning Commission's denial on June 2nd, 2026, to rezone 264.35 acres of land, more or less, located on the north side of Ronald Reagan Highway and on the south side of Louisiana Highway 1077, Covington, S17 and 20, T6S, R10E, from its existing R1 Rural Residential District and NC2 Neighborhood Commercial District to an S1 Suburban Residential District and S2 Suburban Residential District.
Okay. All right, Mr. Paul Marone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'll try to defer some time for other speakers. There was some crossover discussions between the two projects, and I know it's a little bit confusing, so I apologize for that. But this is the larger project that is just to the west of the project that we just talked about. This entire tract is 305 acres. We are only proposing to rezone 264 acres. First, I want to start with, this is not the project that you saw last year or that the Commission saw last year. It is very different in a number of respects, and I want to touch on those for you. Last year, we requested that the entire site be rezoned to S2. This particular request this evening, we have already reduced 145 acres from S2 to S1. So over majority of the site is now being proposed for S1. Last year, the maximum density was 5.8 lots per acre. This year, we're proposing 2.5 lots per acre. That's about a 57% reduction in the density from last year to this year. Last year, the entire 305 acres was subject to the request to rezone. This year, only 264 acres, so there's 41 fewer acres being requested to rezone. Last year, the buffers amounted to 4.5 acres. This year, 34 acres, so that's a 29.5 acre increase in buffer and green space area. Also, we are fully prepared on this site to go over and above the UDC requirements, which, as you have heard tonight, are very significant. First, the UDC requires a 50-foot buffer at the highway entrances. Well, we're proposing and committing to a 100-foot buffer at the highways 1077 and 190. There are no buffers anywhere else required along the property lines, but we are committing to a 100-foot buffer along the property line where we abut any existing subdivision or residential development, and 50-foot where we abut vacant land. So we are also not proposing to rezone any of those buffer areas. We are leaving that out of the rezoning, and it will stay in the existing zone. Your UDC permits 60-foot road right-of-ways with open ditches. We are committing to having an 80-foot boulevard that will connect these two state highways from Highway 190 to Highway 1077. We are also committing in the S2 portion of the project to have curb and gutter construction as opposed to open ditches. Your UDC finally requires that we have one public hearing before the Zoning Commission. I want to point out that my client was proactive, reached out and had 10 meetings with a number of constituents and surrounding subdivisions before we had our first hearing. I would also submit to you, much as I did on the last project, that this proposal is compatible and appropriate. And I won't go into all of the detail that I did last time, but I think it's important. The 2040 plan, again, the forward-looking guidance for us all, for the parish and for us, says the vast majority of this site should be medium residential densities. Densities far greater than the S2 and even greater than that for the more limited S1. So we fit very well. We fit squarely in your future land use plan for this property. We fit squarely, compatibly, and appropriately with those developments around us, which we've already named. So as far as surrounding zoning and future land use, we are there. With regards, well, I will conclude and give more time. This is a very important project. This is very important to St. Tammany Parish, and we believe this is an appropriate location between these two major highways. We believe this is the appropriate place for this development, which this is the 20-year development that we talked about before. There was some confusion. This is the development. In 5 years, we have phase 1. It's 20 years to full build out. Please keep that in mind. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Casey Forshey.
Thank you very much. I spoke to you earlier as Forshey Construction. I'm here now as the chairman of the Home Builders Association. I'm in support of this project because it's exactly the type of housing that St. Tammany Parish has identified as a critical need. The housing needs assessment that the Council Commission is very clear. We have a shortage of attainable housing across multiple price points. This subdivision directly addresses that need. These homes are for our teachers, deputies, firefighters, nurses, young families, and skilled workers. Earlier this year, the Northshore Home Builders Association encouraged the Council to move from planning to implementation. Over the last several years, you've adopted the New Directions 2040 Comprehensive Plan, updated the Unified Development Code, and commissioned a housing needs assessment. Those documents were not intended to sit on the shelf. They were intended to use as guidelines for decisions like this one. When a project is thoughtfully planned, then professionally engineered, it provides the type of housing that the study says we need. We believe it deserves fair consideration. On behalf of the Northshore Home Builders Association, I respectfully ask you to support this appeal and help provide attainable housing and opportunities for young working families in St. Tammany Parish. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cecil Hudson.
Good evening again. I just quickly want to applaud your staff, and I hear it consistently in your chamber, as well as other factions, that your staff is the best of the best. And I implore you to continue to trust them. And when you read these packets, especially this one that we're looking at right now, they go into great detail in giving you and us quality information that we can count on. It's not throwing darts and spaghetti against the wall. It's very detailed information. And your staff is very qualified. We as builders and developers work with them every day, and we don't get away with anything. Trust me. So I just implore you to trust your staff, trust your experts, trust what you've commissioned and received a 400-page housing study that you can trust as the truth. And God knows we need the truth.
Thank you. Todd Dean.
Hi, Council. Good evening. I'm here to speak in favor of the project as well. I'm a local real estate broker. My wife Nina and I have raised our 5 children in St. Tammany Parish. Next month, I start my 31st year in the real estate business here in St. Tammany. For almost 20 years, I was a president of a local plumbing contracting company. So I think I'm uniquely qualified to talk about both real estate and construction. I know I don't have long to have this conversation with you, but from a real estate perspective, I think it's important to say that 2/3 of the average American's net worth is derived from the equity in their home. Statistics tell us that the median age of a first-time homeowner is almost 40 years old now. First-time homeowners represent 21% of the market. That's the lowest on record. That's unacceptable. We need housing, and I know you guys have brought up, and other people have as well, about affordable housing versus attainable housing. What we're talking about here is attainable housing. It's geared to what's called the missing middle, the people who are teachers, our nurses, our local skilled workers who don't qualify for affordable housing but get left out in the middle. We want them to be part of that group that has home ownership where they can build wealth just like the generations before them. Secondly, I want to talk about the construction industry. I led a plumbing company here in town through Hurricane Katrina, the Great Recession, the BP oil spill, and COVID. Those were very difficult times, all for different reasons. Right now, I see our construction services companies, I see our electricians, I see our plumbers, I see our suppliers all struggling here in St. Tammany Parish because of the lack of the construction industry. Projects like this that won't kick off today or tomorrow, but will in the future, will help every one of them for those generations to come. So I implore you guys tonight to please consider voting yes for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marone, you have 24 seconds. You wait? Okay. All right. Mr. Don Henderson, may I state you have 10 minutes, and I think we have about 11 cards. So 15 cards, thank you. We have 15 cards, so okay, that's up to you. That's up to you. I just wanted to say I have 15 people, 10 minutes, okay?
I'll try to be within one.
All right, thank you.
My concern about this particular area is again the density. I put together a little map for myself, and I don't know if you can see it. The area that's outlined in blue, or highlighted in blue, is all owned by the Marietta Trust. This is the area that we're looking for the zoning on. On the left-hand side is a little sliver of land here. This is the zoning you're looking at tonight. So you're looking at 300 acres out of a possible 1,300 acres. Whatever happens in this area is going to happen in the other 1,000 acres at some point. With that said, the only other statement I would like to make is, I believe Councilwoman O'Brien mentioned that drainage and traffic end up in planning, and you're absolutely correct. However, you're still under the option, under the public health, safety, and welfare for both zoning and planning, and therefore under zoning, you can take into consideration traffic and drainage. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matthew Allen for Northshore Riverwatch. And yeah, I'm just going to continue on. It's not going to be the same stuff. But the first thought, floods themselves are a natural thing. It's how water runs off to the sea when it rains. We get 60 plus inches a year on average here in South Louisiana. So yeah, it floods. And we know where it floods. So the floods themselves don't cause damage. It's the inappropriate development where it floods that causes damage. Fill too much, redirect flood water to somebody else. This one really stands a chance of doing that. This is, it looks like a little over a mile long, north and south. That actually blocks that overflow that we've talked about from the Trafalgar River. It was happening just a couple weeks ago on Gottschall Road. That's going to redirect all that water. Where's it going to redirect it to, possibly? Those other subdivisions you talked about on the north side. We don't know. But the question is, Northshore Riverwatch doesn't oppose growth. We oppose flooding, floodplain development, and placing massive residential housing. How many homes are we talking about here? 600, 700? That's a lot of homes in a flood hazard area that we don't really know that much about. Also, there's no cumulative impact. Just tonight shows us. We're not going to talk about flooding issues with what we just talked about combined with this one in the same area. That has been the process for 20 years now. We need to get over that. But I really don't envy all your jobs. Zoning decisions are long-term generational decisions. The council has inherited the consequences of decisions made decades ago. Y'all are playing with it right now. struggling with it, not playing, sorry for the wording. The decisions before you tonight will also be inherited by future councils and residents. We have the opportunity to use the best available data, which I gave y'all yesterday in what I emailed to you, and avoid creating more flood risk and exposing our parish to greater flood damages. That's what you do when you put subdivisions where it floods like this. You're exposing this whole parish to greater damages. Okay? Rising flood insurance rates. Why do you think they went up so much? Too many people across the nation building in flood hazard areas. Zoning. It's just about land use. The question for you is this an appropriate area for 700 homes? And then a continuing precedent of adding more and more fill to this area that we know floods regularly, every 10 years or so. Well, land within a floodplain may be privately owned. Floodplains themselves serve a public purpose. They keep the floodwaters out of the existing areas that don't flood already. You start filling them in, again, back to the Aesop stork fable. Start filling it in, that water rises. We have not studied this. Our last base flood elevation study was the 1980 study. We have not studied base flood elevation with all the development we've had in this basin all the way down to Flowers Estates in the last 20 years. We don't know how this river is responding right now. So is it appropriate to zone this for residential 700 plus houses where we really don't know what the real risk is? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paige Ogden.
So last year, this council unanimously voted to deny the appeal on this project. You heard from residents that live in the area about the concerns that the infrastructure was not in a position for this development. You understood that there are hundreds of approved homes that are yet to be built that are going to be further straining this infrastructure, 91 more that you just approved. Many of you spoke directly on the potential impact you saw this development having. During the meeting, Councilman Smith directly asked how anyone could tell him that this community would be better off with the development. He said that it would add to the school problems, drainage problems, traffic problems. Councilman Rowling stated that every single councilman on this panel hears about drainage, infrastructure, and traffic, and this project points to all of them. He asked how the council could deny the residents of what you hear every single day. Councilman Phillips stated that he would hate to be the one living in the house if a 500-year storm came through here. If this was your stance a year ago, and today you as a council don't see the issues in the area that had you unanimously deny that this development would take place, I have to ask, what has changed with our infrastructure? What has changed within our community to alleviate your concerns that you had regarding all of those items? Today, we are only here to discuss the zoning change. It's not a decision for how many homes they'll squeeze in or how many ponds there are going to be, even though the former decision was kind of motivated based on who would be building the homes. That's not what we're here to discuss. We're simply here to determine if the current state of this area is appropriate for a zoning change that has the potential to take the current property from 1 home every 5 acres to 6 homes every 1 acre at its max density. You've heard from the community. Your decision to deny last year was the right decision, and your answer tonight should be the same. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce Lowry.
Thank you. As Chairman Tanner said, I'm Bruce Lowry. I represent the St. Tammany Rural Preservation Alliance. And I want to say, first of all, that this thing that we're talking about is a game changer for Goodbee. We'll never get Goodbee back if this thing goes through, no matter whether it's, and I think there's some confusion on whether it's S1 or S2. I'm not sure if you can change that in midstream. Maybe you can. You guys can tell me. But that being the case, the last time I was here, it was regarding a similar situation. Many council members voted in favor, and they spoke of the lack of nearby housing for nurses, technicians, tradespeople, public employees, young professionals, so on and so forth. That concern is appreciated. Right now, right today, There are more than 2,700 approved home sites in 13 developments, which are within 6 miles of the 2 zoning changes on the docket. St. Tammany Parish Comprehensive Housing Needs Assessment in January did not project a need in the North submarket, which is what they call it, for 2,700 new homes. Last week, my wife Kathy and I drove through the Oak Alley Meadows subdivision near Covington High. We were amazed at how many marked vehicles belonging to police and other public entities from neighboring jurisdictions like Mandeville, Jefferson Parish, Hammond, and others were parked in driveways there. Those folks can find the houses. I wonder why our folks in Covington can't find them. At some point, one has to consider if we may have already gone too far, especially in this north submarket area included in the corridors along 1077, 1085, 25, and US 190 from 25 to the 190, 1077 intersection. The need for additional new housing in this area is not apparent. It doesn't show in the housing assessment, and it isn't reflected in the number of new houses which will become available soon. What does show is the impact on traffic volume, water quality, drainage, flood control, land use pressures that the parish has acknowledged are already strained. Residents are asking for responsible parish-wide decision-making, not for advancing the projects that outpace infrastructure and established land use. Rezoning appeals for major intersections like at 190 and 1077 affect safety, land use, and infrastructure far beyond a single district. Each council member has a duty to evaluate parish-wide consequences so decisions align with the broader needs of the parish. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 24 seconds. If Donna Beaver would like to start, we can do that and then continue later with the 3 minutes. Is Donna Beaver here?
I'd like to defer.
Okay. Do you want to pick back up at the 3 minutes when we start?
I would like to defer, but then I don't want to speak again. I would like to defer
Okay.
24 seconds to Erin.
She can't pick up.
And if she can go into the next 3 minutes, that would be great.
She can't take the person who needs to go through. She can waive her.
You can waive it, and I'll go to the next card, which is Bruce Lambert.
I'm Bruce Lambert. I'm at 10062 Hereford Road. There's a few things I'd like to bring up that's actually on the application. One of them, talking about traffic, says the first 100 houses are going to generate 7% increase in the peak morning traffic. That's just the first 100 houses. What's another 70 going to be? Is it 30%, 40% on just the morning commute alone? Thank you.
I'm sorry. We'll pick you back up in the 3 minutes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Marone, 3 minutes.
Thank you. I would begin by asking you, I know it's kind of hard to see maybe, but please look at these boards if you will, because this board shows the commitments to do more than what your code requires. This board shows the differences between the plan last year and the plan this year. The plan this year is not the same plan. I went through in detail in my opening remarks, and this lays that out. Not the least of which is that 145 acres, the majority of the site, has been changed from a request for S2 to S1. So please keep that in mind. With regards to some of the comments that were made, you know, I'm going to repeat what I said before because I think it's important, and that is that this property is not in the Tchefuncte Basin. And I understand that Mr. Allen says, well, sometimes those basins overflow into one another. And I will tell you again, it is rare for that water to come over 1077, but when the water comes over 1077, it does not not eclipse the ridge that is between 1077 and our property. It just does not do that. So when we're asking about, well, what's the width of the flood plain and in the Tchefuncte, we are not in the Tchefuncte floodplain. In fact, the east side of almost our entire site is not in any floodplain at all. So again, what that suggests is that we do not take on water from the east, from the Tchefuncte, because of that ridge. So please understand that. I hope that I'm conveying that clearly. I know that it gets confusing. So I do want to reiterate what Mr. Reynolds said, and that is that your UDC has two very distinct requirements. It has retention, and it says you've got to reduce the runoff by 25% in a 100-year storm event. We're proposing to do a 200-year storm event, which to my knowledge has never been done in St. Tammany Parish. In addition to that, though, your code also says that if you have floodplain, you've got to mitigate that floodplain. Totally separate requirement, and you can't combine the two. So we are going to exceed your retention requirements to a 200-year event, and we're going to comply with all of your floodplain mitigation requirements, separate and apart from that. So if there are floodwaters, we have absolutely maintained the floodplain. And that is important for you to understand. With regards to traffic, I do want to point out something that was said, and that is that there are 45% of the people traveling into this parish that are commuters. This is a unique spot. A lot of the people coming from Tangipahoa, from the west and to the south, are commuters, so that won't change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce Lambert.
You're starting the rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. There's 3 minutes, and the next speaker would be Brenda Dale, if there's time left.
Okay, I'm going to be very brief. Thank you. First of all, in the PUD it says major arterial streets, 1077, according to Louisiana DOTD, is a minor collector. Doesn't meet the qualifications of what an arterial is in definition of Louisiana DOTD. The second thing is the parish has already stipulated in the plan that there would be a sub-regional 1077. You've already committed to the plan that everybody keeps talking to, and I would definitely defer this divestment decision until that plan has been finished, because I think we're talking about a lot of things, and the parish needs a deliberative document that gives an answer to these questions. Thank you very much.
Ms. Brenda Dale.
Thank you. I would like to yield my time to John Dale.
It's not how it works. You can't yield to a specific person. You can waive your request to speak. The next person in line, in terms of the comment cards, would be called to fill the remainder of time.
Scott Jr. You yield your time. Okay. John Dale.
Looks like I made it up one way or the other. I would like to address a couple of things that were noted by the council last go-round. Although this is a zoning case, not a drainage or traffic issue, the zoning changes concern density, and density does concern traffic and flooding and other infrastructure issues. Remind you that the zoning commission has turned this down not once but twice. I've heard a lot about trust in the staff. What about trust in your zoning commission? Okay, I strongly request that you put your trust in them. As I understand, we heard about the flood analysis and about whether there's a ridge or whether the buildup of the development is going to cause the backing up of the Tchefuncte. It's still going to flood our homes. And then finally, I respectfully note that Councilwoman Casaubon spoke glowingly about the concepts and profits of the developer, the builders, and their contractors. You know what I didn't hear? I didn't hear a word about the concerns of her constituents and her neighbors. I respectfully submit that you all,
Let's keep it to the subject.
I respectfully submit that the rest of the council consider that. Thank you.
Okay, there's 44 seconds. Mr. Charles Clark. Okay, you wave? Okay. All right, okay. Susan Willie.
Good evening. I'm Susan Willie. I live in the District of 3. I just want to thank all of y'all for the opportunity to be here tonight. I had a whole speech, but a lot of it is redundant. So all I'm going to say is we say no to rezoning. That's the answer. Listen to our citizens. We're begging. This is not the location or the place for these homes. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 16 seconds. Donna Clemens. I'll give you 17 seconds. Okay.
I did too. Just like Susan, I had a big long speech to talk about the zoning. It's not the zoning change. And their keyword, I respectfully tell you, that water crosses the road. I live right where that water crosses the road. And it's not the floods. It's not these 100 years. I'm 60 years old. I've lived through the 100-year flood, a 500-year flood. How many more floods do I have to live through? 3 weeks ago, I rode around watching the river rise. It crossed the road. It has to travel through this development. You clog that development up.
Okay, wind it up.
I will flood. It will back up. You cannot mitigate the river. You cannot mitigate a river. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I still have, of course, left, but unfortunately the time is over. Mr. Laughlin, and I asked the council to kind of, if we could, speak once and ask all your questions. And I think we can wind this up.
Yes. I have a quick just comment to say on the market. So as the only realtor on the council, I just looked up the MLS. There's currently 1,566 homes for sale right now in St. Tammany Parish, single family homes. Now, only 196 of them are new and only 752 of them are in excellent condition. So just looking at those, they have an average 80 days on the market. So they're not selling. They're taking a while to sell. We just approved 91, so let's add that. Now, I thought we only had 1,000 new homes in this area coming, but sir, if you were right and it's 27 homes,
I guarantee it.
If you add it together, we're either looking at 3,500 homes are in the chute or ready to be sold in this area. If this, and then to add this to it, I just don't see how the market can take it. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Seiden.
Thank you. I think this development presents an opportunity to address one of St. Tammany Parish's greatest challenges, and that's providing quality housing while planning responsibly for future growth.
Put your mic up.
Which is what I was elected to do. Our comprehensive housing needs assessment confirms that more than 44% of our workforce commutes into St. Tammany from outside the parish due to limited housing opportunities, compared to the national average of 22%. The housing shortage not only impacts residents, but it also affects our local employers who depend on a stable workforce, because our retention rate is so low because we train employees, we hire them, they love working here, they want to stay here, but there's nowhere for them to live. And so excuse me.
Excuse me.
I'm speaking. They don't have anywhere to live is what it's what the data shows. And so they decide to look for jobs to where they, local to where they live. And so we lose those employees, and then we have to train more. It's a huge problem for employers in our area. This master plan community has been designed to exceed many parish standards. Its drainage system is engineered to reduce runoff during a 200-year storm, provided flood protection beyond current code requirements, and I've also taken into consideration the transportation issues. I have spoken with Senator Patrick McMath, and we are aligned, and he has assured me he is going to prioritize Highway 1077 in light of this project. He has expressed his commitment to work with the parish, and I have also called DOTD, and they actually do have plans to widen 1077. There's just no money committed to it now. So Senator McMath has assured me he will help me with this. But equally important, the development will not be built overnight. It will take at least 5 years before the first houses are built. Construction will occur in phases over approximately 20 years, allowing infrastructure improvements to be planned and implemented alongside growth rather than all at once. So my responsibility is to consider the long-term interest of St. Tammany Parish, and I believe a thoughtfully planned, phased community offers greater accountability, better infrastructure coordination, and improved drainage planning and more effective transportation planning than piecemeal development spread across multiple projects. So for these reasons, I do support this project.
Thank you, Ms. Sutton. Ms. O'Brien.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I know several people had talked about it was denied in 2025. I'm looking at this chart, and it shows that the 2025 proposal had 5.8 lots per acre, and the 2026 one has 2.5 lots per acre. The original one was 305.5 acres. Now this one is 118.6. I can't read all of it from too far away, even with my glasses, but it seems like there's a substantial difference in the proposals. I wanted to reiterate with Ted. Can you come back up here, please, if you don't mind? I know one of the biggest fears of everybody is the water, and I wanted to ask you, because we had talked about that ridge and all this other stuff, and just please reiterate if there's anything. I guess I'm trying to ask you a question that you can't outright answer because you don't have the definitive plans, but the process that we go through, I just was very impressed with y'all turned down somebody 14 times. That gave me confidence that you are watching out for our citizens. I just want to know when we say yes, if we say yes as a council, that can you go through again, Cliff Notes version, what they would have to go through to get this approval for from engineering? What's the process? Just real quick again, for my comfort. I just need to hear it again.
I'll do my best on a Cliff Notes again for you. It's, if it was to be overturned and the zoning approved, the next step would be a concept plan where they lay out the proposed development, infrastructure, lots, detention, etc. We would have no data at that time to answer any of the drainage concerns. Are they meeting the storm requirements? Are they not? It would not be presented at that time, or not be required to be presented at that time. Then they would go to the final plat and construction plan, where a full set of civil plans, drainage study, and traffic study would be required to be approved for current codes, for our ordinances today. That would be the, I'm trying to Cliff Note it for you, sorry.
Right. And in your opinion, do you feel, we said yes, there were improvements in the UDC. Do you feel there's significant improvements? And also speak to our regulations compared to those of surrounding areas, because I keep on hearing that we're very, very strict compared to other areas.
So I hear the same thing. I have not taken time to go look at other people's regulations. I focus on our UDC and our regulations. I hear the same thing from a lot of the development community, that St. Tammany does have stricter regulations than other municipalities or other jurisdictions in Louisiana, where some require pre versus post. We are more stringent than that. But again, current UDC is for a 25% reduction of a 100-year storm event. We have seen greater than 100-year storm events out there. So our UDC is better than most. It's better than it was before, to piggyback off of what I gave to Mr. Corbin earlier, and we will require them to meet the UDC requirements. But again, I really don't have a lot of technical data right now for you.
Right, right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know I'm looking at, again, an affidavit by Mr. Valley. If you don't mind, can he come up? Mr. Valley, can you remind us what you've put in this sworn affidavit that's a part of our packet as far as the improvements above and beyond what's required?
Sure. I'll do my best to recite them. If I forget one, just help me. But the 100-foot buffers at neighbors that are occupied, so residences, and 100-foot buffers on the state highways. The UDC requires just 50 feet only at the state highways. I've agreed to cap the overall density at 2.5 units per acre. No exceptions, and which is less than what the straight zoning, we've gone through this a lot tonight, the debate, but I thought that makes it simple. So 2.5 units per acre is the max density. That's right. And then also the S2 portion of the project, and you may want to ask staff about this, but what I've heard a lot is the open ditches on roadsides in the parish can cause a lot of expenses for maintenance and just cleaning them out, and the culverts get full of water or full of dirt and whatnot. So I've committed on the S2 portion of the property to do a curb and gutter design, which means there's no ditches out front and the roads are curbed.
And then the engineering.
Yes, probably most importantly, I should have mentioned, because we recognize that it is a critical drainage area and a flood sensitive area, we've committed to accommodating a 200-year storm where your ordinance only requires a 100-year storm. So meaning that a storm event at 100-year, which is the standard, as Teddy mentioned, across, that FEMA sets that. I've acknowledged that perhaps we get larger events than a 100-year storm and have now committed to designing to a 200-year storm.
Which Ted just mentioned, it's greater than 100 in that area, so.
That's right. I will say, though, I don't know of any subdivisions that have been designed to the 100-year that actually had flooding issues, but nonetheless, we'll go to a 200-year storm in that regard.
Okay.
And then,
and to your credit, I'm going to tell you, I've been sitting here for a while. I've never seen anything committed, and I appreciate that you've got a signed affidavit for this. This is not something that you're saying in passing. You do have a signed affidavit. I have to say I've never seen a commitment for a 200-year storm events, so I do applaud that. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corbett.
Thank you, Councilwoman Tanner. I'll be really quick. Councilman Laughlin routed off some numbers. Very much appreciate that, about houses that are in process and houses that are for sale and houses in various states, some new, some not new. All I want to point out is, building on Councilwoman Seiden's comments, the housing study recognized and incorporated all those homes that were in the backlog and in the buffer of available homes when they told us that they needed thousands more homes built by 2030. So while Councilman Laughlin is correct, I assume he's correct in the numbers he put out, that was included in the, as part of the housing study, referenced in part of the housing study, acknowledged in the housing study, yet we still have a severe lack of housing for a significant portion of the population of our parish. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, the one thing nobody really mentions when they're talking about a traffic study is you're going to have people coming in to cut grass, you're going to have people coming in to work on streets. I mean, there's all kinds of services that'll take place with vehicles, so that's going to also add to the traffic. I just wanted to throw that out there. This particular development right here is a different animal than the other one. The other one, I was going to vote no until they changed it to S1. And I thought that would be a good change. From what I understand, it was 30 houses less. This one right here really scares me. I respectfully disagree with Mr. Marone. When we're talking about regional drainage, floodplain areas like the Chafuncta or the other one, there is going to be massive water coming down through there sometime. And like that lady did say, And I did say that before, I'd hate to be in one of the houses that did get flooded. At this point, I couldn't right now say I would vote for that, thinking that I'm going to have somebody buy a house there that I believe will flood. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, can we keep it kind of shorter?
Although I am not for the density increase being proposed here, I am encouraged by Councilwoman Siden's comments regarding her conversations with State Senator Patrick McMath. I believe in him. He's always delivered for our parish. If he says he's going to work hard to try and get the funding to make the improvements to handle the significant increase in traffic in that area, it gives me a little bit of hope. This does not address the affordable housing study, in my opinion. It may help some of the local builders. This phase one, which I believe is around 100 homes being built in the first 5 years, I don't know how many local builders are going to be building those 100 homes, but let's say there's 5 of them. They get to build 20 homes apiece over a 5-year period. I hope that helps. Anyhow, that's the end of my comments. Thank you,
sir. Mr. Rowling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of comments, and it's going to be very brief. And I'm wondering, what am I missing here? We cannot deny that this has been denied twice. The old plan and the new plan denied. So just because there's certain things on these graphs, that don't necessarily mean it would be approved by P&Z. Are we going to set a precedence on these denials from P&Z that this council and this body is going to become P&Z? Do we not have confidence in the P&Z board that we appoint? What does that say? So again, just think about those things that I just said. Do we have confidence in P&Z? They've denied this twice.
Mr. Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Valley, can you come back up? Have you determined, I'm assuming you have a pretty close idea, these homes, about how many square feet do you anticipate?
They'll start at 1,700 and run to 2,700, and the lion's share of them will be 1,900 to 2,100.
Okay, I have to say, I like that, okay? Because I've been sitting here wondering, why does everybody need a 2,800 to 4,000 square foot home? It may be what you want and it may be what you can afford, but not everybody can afford that. And I got a bunch of kids. They got their own homes, but they're in that range you're talking about, down to about 1,600.
Yes, sir.
So I'm glad to hear the square footage. I'm glad I asked that question. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Mr. Laughlin.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll be quick. Jeff, really quick, if you don't mind. Sorry. What's your price point on these homes? What's the low range to the high range, you
I think these homes will be in the upper 200s. Some of the real smaller plans may be able to get to 260, 270, but average selling price, I would say, would be 280 to 300.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. You can sit. My issue, though, is let's talk about what's affordable. So we're talking about finding homes for teachers and nurses. All right. So a teacher with a couple of years of experience can probably make about 60 grand here in St. Tammany Parish. In order to be in the right ratios, you want to buy a house that's $160,000 to $180,000. So even when this project is built, none of these houses are affordable. So I hate the fact that my colleagues like to throw this term around, but I must be the only poor person or working class person on this council, because 230, 280 is not affordable. Thank you.
Ms. Casabon,
My turn? Okay.
it's your turn.
Okay. Well, I don't want to do this, but I have questions about the planning and zoning, since everybody's got up and said this was denied twice by planning and zoning. Why don't we listen to planning and zoning? But I have been recognizing a problem with planning and zoning hearing important subdivisions. Well, actually, let's back up. This is probably only the second subdivision that this council has seen in 5 years, and the process. And I have to say that that's the same thing that's happened to planning and zoning. Like I said, with the moratorium and everything, we didn't have any new subdivisions. I know on this one, I did call a commissioner to please see if they could get it tabled so we could have a community meeting. That wasn't done. And then maybe I'm wrong, but I think I heard that there was one person that asked for a tabling. It didn't get a second. So to me, they were arbitrary and capricious in just outright denying it without a community meeting, and I hadn't even seen it. So I called a community meeting at the Goodbee Fire Station, and I had about 6 people there, and 3 of them I had invited that really didn't live in the community and stuff, and the developer, and we also had some other things on the agenda. And the developer was there to present this plan, and that was really kind of the first time I had seen the total detail of it. I have another incident with planning and zoning that I had an area in my district, which I do know they did table it. It was moving from a multi-family, 186 duplexes, and the developer was asking to go to single-family homes. So we tabled it. We had a public meeting. The next meeting, they tabled it again. The third meeting, they denied it. And all this time, the people in the community were given the hope that they could change this, but they did not understand that the M1 was a lot denser than the single family. So no, at this point, I'm going to make some recommendations with planning and zoning that comes up when there is something this large, this big, if we have another one, that we automatically have public meetings, that we, that the council and that the planning and zoning people have a deeper understanding of the information. Because I've dug, I've asked, I've gone to other areas. One of our flaws with the planning and zoning is the poor things can't talk to a developer until it has been publicly presented. So this is something I think we're going to work on, because it's really, the people are coming out, and it seems like the more people that's there, the more that they're denying without getting all the information, or even talking to the council person to see how a development could improve an area with the drainage. So that brings me to this development. When 2 years ago, Mr. Valley came to me, I told him, no, my Eagle Landing had some detention problems, spring lakes, there's some drainage in there that we want to do something with. It just didn't handle it. And definitely the traffic. That was the first plan that we heard, and again, didn't have a lot of information given to y'all. But he came back, the planning and zoning denied it, came back to us, or to me, and he had totally redrew the plan and put in and went ahead, like I said, and did kind of like we used to do with the PUDs. A PUD was where we got the total, the density And at that stage, we've got the drainage and traffic study, everything in front of us to make a better decision. Well, this is kind of like what we call the concept plan now, but not as in detail. This developer went ahead, did that to inform me that he could take in Eagle Landing drainage, and there is a way through engineering or whatever that he could possibly help with the Spring Lake drainage also. Then back to the traffic. Well, I don't know it hadn't been mentioned today. I think we've touched on all the things that he's going to do, but on the first development, he was going to up front do a 80-foot boulevard cut through from 1077 to 190. But with this plan, he's going to do it in phases, that at 20 years, at the end of the 20-year that we would have dedicated to the parish, 80-foot boulevard that would connect 190 and 1077. I know what the public has paid for our Ochsner Boulevard, and now we're working on our Mandeville bypass, and that's all with our capital money. That when this is completed, that is one of the assets that we would have as a parish that the public would not have to pay for. Again, I'm looking at this as a 20-year project, first year, which he says the first 5 years, but this can go next with the concept that can be turned down. I mean, just like we said, 14 times to get it right, that sort of thing, before they can begin to develop. But I feel that this is something that will make the state work on our traffic, because I've been told once it's inked or something, that then they take us seriously. That, in other words, we're not a threat now. So anyway, and I'm looking at this, and then, by the way, this is also below the urban growth boundary. The urban growth boundary is about a mile from Godshaw Road, but I've already had 3 developers in the last 2 years come to me wanting to develop. It's kind of a land, it's beautiful timberland across from Tentella. And I've told them, no, that's the urban growth boundary. So in my mind, there is no more subdivisions past Godshaw Road. If they wanted to develop, they'd have to do the 5 acres, or what we call a minor subdivision, that incorporates, if you have 20 acres or more, you could have 5 lots. So there's some pretty big acreage there, wooded. And I really don't see someone coming in and doing that unless it's personal, but no more subdivisions in this corridor. So this would be the last available or buildable area that we could do. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve this zoning. Pardon? To override it. I'm sorry. To override the.
Before that's done, Mr.
Sure.
Burke, do you want to make
sorry.
a short say something? And then I'll give it back to her. Okay.
I just wanted to clarify something in response to Mr. Laughlin. He's a realtor on this council, but I'm also a mortgage residential lender and have been for 25 years. He talked about income of school teachers, but in the last probably 10 years or better of residential lending, I've never had a single income household. It's usually got multiple streams of income. The average median income in St. Tammany Parish is $81,202 for a household. When you take a $275,000 house, and I'm using maybe a USDA rate here, USDA is rural development loans, which are low interest rate loans for St. Tammany. In fact, St. Tammany Parish has declared rural development for the whole entire parish. That payment on a $275,000 home with no down payment would come up to around $2,000. So at $2,000, you would to make that 30% of your income threshold there, you'd have to make 80 grand. So this falls right in line with affordability for a multiple income family, and it goes right in line with the $81,202 St. Tammany Parish average household income. That's all.
All right. Ms. Casabon, I'll turn it back over to
Yeah.
you
What was the motion to override
to override
the
Mr.
planning and
Laughlin.
zoning denial?
I've been called out twice, so I'd like to rebut.
Oh,
You technically, Councilman Laughlin, you've spoken twice on the topic already, which, according to Robert's rules, is it. If the council person would like to allow you the opportunity.
Twice?
He spoke once on this.
I spoke once on
You've spoken twice. I keep count.
Oh.
When I was chair, we never had that.
Chairs enforce the rules, Robert's rules, and I've had this discussion before. Each
All right,
council.
Mr. Laughlin, I will allow you one statement, short statement, then I will give it back to Mr. Burke, and then it goes to Ms. Casabon.
All I'm trying to say is,
Oh, I'm sorry. I can do that.
all I'm trying to say is there's a difference between affordability and how much you can borrow. And I work just like you do, Mr. Burke, and I'm not calling you out on this, but I work as a notary, a mobile notary, and I'm going into these large subdivisions 2 to 3 times a week to do loan modifications. Because no good real estate agents like me shoehorned people into homes they can't afford. All right? So there's a difference between what you should afford and what the bank will lend you. Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Okay. Mr. Burke?
I would have to agree to an extent, because I am the bank, and I do these loans on a daily basis, and you know, you have to do your due diligence, and I am totally against those, I call them predatory lenders, that will put people in houses that they can't afford. But that's not the kind of business I do. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the median income is $81,202. And based on that median income, a $2,000 payment would be affordable. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Casabon?
I'll just make a motion to override the planning and zoning's decision to deny.
Do I have a second? Ms. Seiden? Okay. The vote, if you vote yes, you are overriding the denial.
That's correct.
If you vote no, you're leaving the zoning denial. Please vote by your lights.
The motion passes with 8 yeas, 5 nays, and 1 absent.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
We still need a motion.
A motion, okay. Motion.
Hold on one moment.
All right, hold on.
Okay.
Okay, I need a motion and a second to introduce. Ms. Casabon?
Shame on you, Martha. Shame on you.
Please leave quietly. Ms. Casabon makes the motion, and Ms. Seiden, do you second? Okay.